card for a parking problem.
And 4 in your 23.
Yes, that's 4, I'll get a 28. Come on, truck when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Come on, truck, white Lincoln X-ray 985, should come back up next.
Toyota 2000. Patrick Spalding.
10-4, if you can just put a note in the, something like that, I'm going to be leaving a note on a vehicle so they can remove it.
Rockingham 505. Enter vandalism case for Athens complainant, soon to be ex, slashed her tires and has made threatening comments to her. She's concerned he might return.
Yeah, forgive this at 32.
10-4. You're assigned to a vandalism case in Athens. Did you copy the 505?
Yeah, 4. Look at that. No, 3 in Depot Street. Truck boy entry 5.
7435.
10-4.
10-4.
You go 643 again.
143.
You go with that 43 you had. I didn't hear any, but it just looks like we do.
10-4. I just wanted to know if you should be put back 76 to Cabana Circle or to the subject's address.
Yeah, I'll be 23 back on that town property case, and I'll be 76 to the Williams Road address to see if I can find the owner.
10-4. 449 1120.
Now, 449, 1121, thank you.
10-4.
Code 4. 4.
Rockingham 535.
Yeah, that was a great college.
535.
Should be. You guys know if our woman who walked into a house. I'll slide up that way.
Caller is now been able to close the front door. He is now pounding on the door, trying to get in the mail. About 5 foot, long dark hair, got tie-dye shirt on, and number 21 is on.
We
have separation. She's right.
Hey guys, good to see everybody. Panic in the free Karen Reed kingdom right now. You can see it, and we're going to see it. I'm going to have on with me in a little bit Karen McCormick from True Crime and Some Wine, and we're going to do a reaction video to last night's show with podcaster, true crime writer M. William Phelps. And it was fun to watch. It's about a 15-minute segment, and you can see the panic in Turtle Boy's face. He knows what's coming, the truth, and it ain't on his side. Let's take this picture down. So Karen's going to be here at 8, so I got about 10 minutes. And I wanted to come on early. Sorry, I turned away from the mic. I wanted to come on early. This article was in Boston Globe magazine today, and I kind of want to run it by you. It just is kind of interesting. And a little dark in here. All right. I promise you it's not very long. So just put up with me and let me read it for a second. So this is uptitled, "The Media Gets Things Wrong. How to Be a Skeptic, but Not a Crackpot." When I think about the old adage that it's good to be open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brains fall out, the name that pops into my head is Brett Weinstein. Weinstein is an evolutionary biologist, formerly of Evergreen State College in Washington. In 2017, some faculty and student activists proposed a day of absence for white people on campus as a form of protest against racism. I do remember this. Weinstein objected, saying that one's right to speak or to be must never. This is weirdly worded. One's right to speak or to be must never be based on skin color. In the ensuing blowup, his classroom was occupied by protesters accusing him of racism, and the campus was shut down due to threats. Their positions untenable, he and his wife, Heather, sued and then resigned in a $500,000 settlement from the college. It was generally unfair, and they were genuinely wronged for expressing a reasonable critique of campus activists. And I agreed with Weinstein, Brett Weinstein at the time, and I've seen him on, but there's more to this. So the writer, whose name is Jesse Singal. But since then, Weinstein has become a full-on conspiracy theorist. In his mild professorial voice, he has suggested that the October 7th Hamas terror attack in Israel may have been an attempt to divide the vaccine skeptic community. So I didn't hear this, but if it's true, it's nuts. So Weinstein apparently has suggested that last year's October 7th Hamas terror attack, when they attacked those concert goers, was actually an attempt to divide the vaccine skeptic community, of which he is an ardent member. So to think that attack was about COVID vaccines is crazy. He also has said that China might be smuggling soldiers into the United States via the Darien Gap, and that Kamala Harris's earrings in the recent debate were designed to look like they might contain an earpiece feeding her the answers to the questions, so as to bait online sleuths, even though they were in fact just earrings. So yeah, that is a weird thing to say. So, but here's the thing. Rather than damaging his prospects, Weinstein's descent into crankery has allowed him to build a new career as a public intellectual. He co-hosts a successful podcast with his wife, has 1 million followers on X, and has almost 500,000 YouTube subscribers. He's established himself as a guru, treated with reverence by a large and growing fan base. Other even more prominent conspiracy theorists, including Tim Pool. I've heard of Tim Pool. I've never seen him, so I don't know if he's actually a conspiracy theorist. And you could have added Alex Jones to the mix. So, but this is a legitimate point, is that at some point, someone is saying something that is interesting, So, in fact, before I knew that Karen was going to come on with me tonight, one of the things that I went over. So, I was listening to a Joe Rogan show the other day. I hadn't listened to Joe in a while, and I put on a show. I was doing laundry or working out or something. I wanted something to listen to, and I didn't even know what what his expertise was. And he was a guy that claimed. No, I'm sure he was. He was a guy that was supposedly for 4 years the head of Psychology Today. And he supposedly has, over the years, published many mainstream peer-reviewed articles. And so he sounded credible to me. And then what he was talking about was this conspiracy by Google to determine how we think about any particular issue, particularly political issues, but a lot of other issues too. And so far, so good to me. I believed, okay, maybe this is happening. This guy sounds scientific. And then he started talking about how Google's been trying to scare him into silence, making attempts on his life. And then he mentioned as an example a recent car accident that his wife had been in, and how that was an example of it. And he started giving other examples. A weird one like this: they opened a luggage bag and there was some kind of pin that popped out and poked him. It was there was nothing about that pin that was in any way life-threatening, but that was apparently designed to intimidate him. This is where you know, like, this guy's gone off the deep edge. Now, I do believe that Google is probably up to some nonsense, but it was but Joe Rogan wasn't buying it either. So this is why you have to test things logically, and Joe did it. So the guy mentioned there was an email thing, Proteon email or something like that, Proteon mail, that supposedly Google was trying to suppress. So I thought the same way as Joe. I had my computer and I typed in Protean mail, and it came up right away in the Google search. So on top of the list. So it wasn't. I typed in Protean mail, so it wasn't being suppressed. And Joe Rogan did the same thing there, and the guy had an explanation. He's like, well, sure, that's because they know that I was going to talk about that on this show, so they turned it off for particular people that they knew might search it. This is the problem. Is this a guy that is someone that he's found an audience, and so now he's grifting on it? Maybe. Is he someone that's gone over the edge into conspiracy? Maybe. It's a really interesting human phenomena to try to understand what's going on here, because we see a lot of this in the Karen Read case. So, for example, apparently this guy had been a lifelong Democrat and a fan of Hillary Clinton. But when he posted something about Google trying to influence elections, she posted something on her Twitter saying this guy's been thoroughly debunked. He's a whatever. And so because of that, all of a sudden conservatives started flocking to him. And previously he had not been someone that catered to a conservative audience. But now, seeing his popularity with conservatives, now he started hanging around with conservatives. He kind of even admitted that. But this is what happens. Now you start tailoring your content to that audience. And what really attracts people on the internet, let's face it, the more nuttier something is, the more it's going to attract them. If you try to say something that's just kind of common sense, that's going to sound bland. People want to hear a conspiracy. So this guy's gone down that road. Does he believe it, or is he just selling it? He seems to believe it. What's the process that goes on in someone's head? Is this kind of a gradual evolution where initially he's trying to respond to the thing that made him popular on the conservative side, but then over time he starts internalizing it and going with crazier and crazier stuff, which just makes him more and more popular. And eventually he's no longer even in touch with reality anymore. Because this seems to be what has happened with someone, for instance, like Sean. He's just no longer connected to reality anymore. Even as you'll see we're going to do a little reaction to the first 15 minutes of Turtle Boy's show last night, where he interviews M. William Phelps. Phelps has a big podcast coming out in a couple of weeks on the Karen Read case. And it's clear Turtle Boy is like, yeah, Sean is nuts. You know, even to Turtle Boy, Sean is nuts. You have to be pretty nuts for that. But you wonder, how do you get to that? Because I don't think when I first was talking to Sean in the summer of 2023, he was nuts. He really wasn't. So there was a process that happened over the last year. Is that something that could happen to any one of us? That's a little disturbing, right? I don't know. These are human things where people want to be liked, want to be popular. If you're doing something like a YouTube channel or something in media, you're going to cater towards the numbers, right? And is there a way to resist that? I did resist it. I can tell you just personally, I had been doing YouTube channels for a couple of years. And although I did have some big successes on the Delphi murders, then once they captured Richard Allen, interest in that case died off. And the only people that are still interested in it now tend to believe that there's a conspiracy there too. I shouldn't say the only people, but the people that are really most interested in watching all those channels. So we did the first live show I did, very first live show of anything. Well, I did a guest spot on a couple of times on somebody else's sports channel a few years back. But the first live show I did on one of my own channels was a hearing in the summer of 2023 in the Karen Reed case. And Dave McGrath was covering at the courthouse outside for the channel. And I was covering inside. And we had about 2,500 people watching it. And that's a huge boost from where we weren't really doing live shows before that. But if I did a video and I had a few hundred views total, you felt good about it. If you had a couple of thousand, you felt really good. And so to have 2,400 people watching live, that was that felt good. So Bombay had, why are the feds professionals looking at death? All right, so I don't want you to think that I'm ignoring your question, Bombay. I will come back to it. So it's easy for me to find because thank you for the donation. Once somebody makes a donation, I can go back and just look at the ones with his donations. On my streaming thing, it shows as starred. So if I click on that, so I promise you, I will come back to it. I want to say, all right, Karen is here now. So when she gives me a thumbs up, I'll know she can hear me and she's ready to come in. Are you ready to come in, Karen? All right, I'm getting the thumbs up. All systems go for Karen McCormick. Hi, Karen. Mic is off. Let me see. Your mic is off, Karen. You got to just, click your mic on. I think it just is on your channel, Karen. I think you've just clicked mute, maybe. If you look on the stream link, on the StreamYard link, is it show right there? See where the microphone thing is? It says you're muted.
I see
it. There you go. There you go. It's been a while, huh?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I haven't used this in a while. How's it going?
It's going good, actually. And I had a call. I hadn't talked to her for a while from Jen Coffindaffer, because she was having some technical difficulties on something too. I'm usually the last person you want to call if you have technical difficulties. Let's face it.
Right? But if you don't use it for a little while, I'm like, oh crap, how do I get this on again? But here we are. So
let's, guys, give us some feedback while we're doing this and getting started, and let us know that our mics are all on the same level. I think Karen's sounds a little. Oh, maybe it's on my end. No, it was on my end. I apologize. So just give us some feedback. And if one of us sounds too high or too low, let me know. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right into Turtle Boy's video. And this is, I think have you already watched this?
I was watching it last night. My mouth I was like, oh my God, is this really happening? So yeah, I watched it.
This was.
I loved it.
All right. Let me line this up. Now, full disclosure, as people have heard the trailer for this know, I was interviewed by Matt too.
Yeah, that's cool.
But I, as far as the content of his show, I don't know, and that's up to Matt. Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't want people to go down some kind of conspiracy road here and think that, whatever he decides, and I think, and what Matt had told me was it's M. William Phelps, and he is a podcaster. Crossing the Lines, I believe, is the name of his main podcast. But he's a long time podcaster. I think he has like over 1 million subscribers. But he's also a true crime author and a regular author, but he's mostly true crime, and he's published about 50 books. And so he's a very experienced mainstream kind of guy, intelligent man. And he's wanted to cover this case from a both sides kind of way. And we'll see what Turtle Boy.
Yeah.
We'll see what Turtle Boy thinks about that.
Yeah, that's not allowed. All right, let's see though.
All right. Just trying to get through the parts. We don't want to do any more of Turtle Boy than we need.
Oh God, no.
And Mr. Phelps now, and we're going to talk about the pod. Hello, should I call you Matt or MW or M William? It's Matt. Matt, you like Matt, right?
Yeah, when we're hanging out at your house. Yeah, I like Matt.
Okay, all right.
But most people call me Phelps. That works for me.
Oh, you're Phelps. Okay, cool. A little blurry there. Yeah.
I'm blurry.
A little bit. That's okay.
Just so people, one of the things about StreamYard is that Turtle Boy uses the same service that I do, is that it puts a lower resolution on the guest automatically. So if Matt already has a relatively cheap or low resolution camera here, and it'll go even lower. I don't know. It's just the way they do it for some reason. So Jessica, I am not obsessed with Turtle Boy, but you'll see he mentions me in this, and I don't have feelings towards Turtle Boy one way or the other. I don't like him. I don't dislike him. I don't have any feelings for him. But the Turtle Boy phenomena is the most dangerous and disgusting phenomena that we've seen in this state.
Absolutely.
Since the Salem witch trials.
And I just want to say, while you're on the topic with that, I actually emailed. His name is Matt, right? I just discovered him last night, and I was like, I need to email this guy. But I explained to him in there that there are these like lines that people use, like, oh, you're obsessed with Turtle Boy. Oh, you're this. And it's like the same thing every single time. I like you. I don't have a personal hatred towards him. I don't think he's a good guy. But my life is not revolved around what he says and does. I don't think he's a good person. I don't like what he's doing. But that's not why I do what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of, I was many years a bartender and a bar owner. And, when you're behind the bar, one of the things you see people up, that sometimes you like them as your customer that comes in, they entertain you, they're funny. But then, from that window from behind the bar, there were some people you find that are pretty shady.
Yeah.
And so, but as the bartender or the bar owner, you tend to, as long as they're not causing problems for you, you just enjoy them from what they are and look the other way. So I'm pretty used to looking the other way on things.
Absolutely.
But what he's doing here, it's at a point where it's so obviously dangerous that when other people, if they follow this a little bit and they don't recognize it, they're part of the problem.
I agree. And the amount of time I think both of us spend trying to explain this to people is absurd. I had somebody last night like, you're not going to make a difference. Your voice means nothing. His voice is louder than you. I'm like, I'm doing this for me. I don't care.
Yes.
I literally don't care, but they just, they're trying to silence us. They always are. And it never ends. But here we are. So, I mean,
that's a great way of putting it. I love the way you just put it there. I'm doing it for me because I think it's so important. This is standing up against a mob and trying to do the right thing. That's what it should be about. You're doing it for yourself. You have a chance here to do something that's the right thing.
Right.
And it's something that has a cost.
Yes, it does.
That you and I have faced the cost for it, but you still do it. So
right. And I said to them, why would I do it? They're like, oh, you and Kevin want clicks and views. This is the fight again, Kevin. And I'm like, clicks and views. We would not be doing this, So it's so crazy. It really is.
I lost 40% of my subscribers in an hour. one night when because Turtle Boy was causing trouble in my chat, and I called him out. So, all right,
it's clear.
We'll be all right. It will be all right.
Oh.
As long the audio's all right. As long as the audio is good.
First, I want to say something about how to get the podcast.
Okay.
You can get the podcast on wherever you get your podcasts. I know I see a lot of people on X that are hating on Apple. If you hate Apple, that's fine. That's great. So you can get the podcast anywhere where you get a podcast. You can get this podcast. You just got to search for it. That's all. The reason Apple's up there, the link for Apple's, because they're the ones who count rankings. And it's important to, as you said, get up there so more people hear this.
Correct. So can you run down the list of people that you're able to say that you interviewed for this podcast? It's going to be 10 parts, correct?
Yeah, 10 parts. And the episodes are running about 40 minutes to an hour right now.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to give away everybody. That would not be fair to some people who are speaking with me, I think. But you know, the main driver of the story here is you. I mean, you are you're the main driver of the story. You know, we've spent a lot of time together. But you also know that I'm a journalist, that I'm going to talk to all different.
It's very clever, right?
It is. He's like, let me build him up. Let me make him feel so great. Because then at the end, you just watch his ego get like so bruised that it's probably the best Turtle Boy live I've ever seen. But go ahead, keep going.
Okay.
Different types of people. I'm going to get everybody's story. What interested me about this from the very beginning is the division.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a community divided like this over a murder. I mean, I say that I have a Hulu special on now that's called Little Miss Innocent, and that's based on a book of mine called We Thought We Knew You, and that took place in Utica, New York, a murder case, and that community was divided. So half the community believe her, the murderer, half the community believe she didn't do it. But there was no protesting. There was no name calling, no Christy Pan. There was none of that shit going on. There was just like, I mean, I've been threatened because I wrote the book, of course. So I'm the bad guy for telling the story. So, but I've never seen anything of this nature. What I see in this case is, for the first time, I think, in a murder story, is I see like social media, like it's live. It's come out of the internet and it's live on the street now. That's what I see. I see this movement that you created. I mean, you know, some people from my world, if you will, have kind of hit me up. Gee, you know, it's strange that you're interviewing Turtle Boy. I didn't think you would do something like that.
What? Talk to the guy that started the whole thing.
And I simply, my answer to that is very simple. It's like, you cannot tell this story without without you in it. You've become part of this story. So that was very interesting to me in many respects. You know, of course, we're different types of journalists. I'll just put on the record there. We're not the same type of journalists. And
I don't know why they said that.
Few are.
Well,
of course, you can't talk about the Jim Jones story without talking about Jim Jones either, right, Karen?
That's the funny part. When people are like, well, why do you always bring up? I'm like, I'm not bringing it up, but he's part of the freaking story. I'd rather not bring him up, but he is. I mean, you can't deny it.
Yeah. I don't have anything to. I've never once looked for dirt on Turtle Boy. People send me dirt. I don't open it. I don't care. I don't look into the other cases. I don't even look a whole lot into the indictments and stuff like that. I just want the public to understand what he is.
Yeah, me too.
And just and to stop, to ignore it. I'd rather not see Turtle Boy to go to jail. I'd rather see people just have the decency to ignore this man.
Right.
And it's his tactics. If he was out there just arguing, being a truth teller like he tries to present himself, that'd be fine.
Right.
That's not what he's doing.
No, he's not.
I mean, we could give a long list of things, but just let's go with last week.
Right.
A new prosecutor was announced, and within 2 hours, he doxed the workplace of the guy's wife.
Correct.
And in that post said, "We're fighting evil, and family of anybody on the other side is not going to be off limits."
No.
And people show up in the
and they're still like, that's not what he does. I'm like, what?
And people show up in the comments, Karen, and they say, "But Kevin, you insult people too." I'm like, that's a false equivalency. It's not the same thing. She's like, "You called Mike Crawford young jelly."
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm not doxing his wife.
Exactly. You should be able, all of us should be able to either like each other online, joke around. But when you start going real life, and the first thing that he demands his cult to do is to go after this man's wife who has nothing to do with it. It's not even the man. He's like, all right, this is where the wife works. Let's do our thing. And this has happened multiple times throughout, the last year or so. I could think of 10 of them offhand where either their jobs were affected, their businesses, their families, their household. Both of us have had it happen. I mean, there's so many examples of it that it's just crazy to me that people even deny it anymore.
And then this person that was saying this in my comments was saying, and now she's someone that I have recognized her name because she's a longtime Free Karen reader. And I said, look, all right, so you don't like that I insult young jelly.
Right.
But you're willing to come here and post this. Do you go on that? Do you go on their websites and post any criticism? Do you go on Turtle Boy's site and say you're against the dog? And of course she doesn't.
They would never, because they'd be next. They'd be next.
Doesn't that tell you something about that mob that you're afraid to do that? Absolutely. Or about you that you don't think to do it? You've drawn this false equivalency. So
exactly.
All
right. Well, look, that brings me to another point. I am really it's really amazing to me and really upsetting to me and very strange to me that people are personally attacked and just ripped to shreds online for their opinions about a case, be it for Karen Read or against Karen Read. And I find this very compelling. I mean, but one of the biggest things for me here is, forgotten in all of this is John O'Keefe. And I'm a victim's advocate. I told you about my personal situation last time I was at your house.
Right.
So I'm a victim's advocate, and you can take this to the bank that in this podcast, you're going to know who John O'Keefe was. You're going to know things about him you don't know about him. And there's going to be a lot of time dedicated to who John O'Keefe was, because I think that's so important in this, just because he's been forgotten.
I disagree completely. He's been forgotten.
Oh, I'll let that go. Then you can
well, in the coverage,
he hasn't been forgotten by us. He's the first
I don't
everything.
No, see, you took it personally. And
no, I'm just saying, because that's a criticism that we get, that John has been forgotten. John has not been forgotten. We remember John every day.
When I say this, I mean in the coverage of it, the media coverage of this, John has been all but forgotten.
Well, he's dead. It's like he's not on trial. John's outcome is determined. He's dead, and we are the person whose outcome is not determined is Karen Read, and we don't forget John. But Karen Read's fate, no matter what happens here, John's still going to be dead. Like, no matter what happens.
His memory's not dead, though.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Karen.
No, I'm sorry. That was just such a terrible, rude, crass thing for him to say. Well, John's dead. His outcome is already determined. That's how you speak about the person, the victim in the case. It just shows his personality and how he looks at things. You can't just say, well, he's dead. Let's worry about the living now. What about justice for the person that, was killed? It's that's secondhand to him. He's like, I don't care. Let's worry about Karen.
And in the trailer, have you seen the trailer yet? I
went to go look for it today. So I watched this last night. Let me just get into I forgot that you and I had spoken. I didn't know who this man was. I like him a lot. So I'm watching this last night, and I'm like, wow, this guy's really good. He's professional. He's not letting Turtle Boy walk all over him. He's saying what he wants. And I could see it in Turtle Boy's face, how annoyed he was getting at this man being a real journalist. And so after, I immediately messaged him, and I'm like, and he was following me. So I'm like, oh, that's good. Maybe he's seen some of the stuff that I've said. So I messaged him and I emailed him today. So I'm hoping to hear back from him. But this was like a moment where somebody, was able to, not get in a fight, not get nasty, but just show Turtle Boy, like, I am going to show both sides of this, and you're not going to stop me no matter what you say. And the things that he said to try to stop him from looking at both sides were pathetic. Like the Jews, like Hitler, like, you don't ask anybody.
Oh, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Yeah, let's wait.
Yeah. But he also, in the trailer, I don't know. So I don't know what the direction his show will be. He's going to try to cover from both sides and stuff. So, in the trailer, there are clues, right? And one of the clues is that it has the audio of Aiden yelling at Paul O'Keefe.
Oh, good. I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure if it was Paul or Mrs. O'Keefe, Peg O'Keefe.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do remember that moment when he kind of confronted them both outside of court, and he's included that here.
Because you know what? Well, that's interesting you say that, because on this episode that we'll probably see, he says to Phelps, like, I've never booed the O'Keefes. I've never done anything like that. And then Julie Carr posted like right after, here he is doing it. So it's like he just lies and he doesn't realize these things are on video. Or does he? I don't know. Does he know that his followers will believe him no matter what, even though it is on video? I'm not sure.
I was in Dedham for the last two hearings, and the first one that I was there, when the O'Keefe family showed up, and this was maybe one of the first times they had a large support group on their own side, which, Kate and other people like Steph put it together, and Kerry. And so they were really buoyed by having that support, but the boos on the other side were loud.
Yeah.
The pink side absolutely booed the O'Keefe family. So that's a reality.
Yeah.
However, I will say that the second time I was there, so the most recent one, the opposite happened. And so somebody put out the word that this is wrong. Finally, when they showed up, the blue side was chanting justice for JJ. Mm-hmm. And I will say, to their credit, the people on the pink side picked up the chant and did it too. So you got to give credit where it's
okay.
Where it's
that's good. That shows some humanity.
Yep.
And that's what I mean. I mean his memory. Right. He needs to be remembered. He needs to be talked about. He needs to be memorialized. So it's but it happens in every murder case. This is not unique to this case. It's just something that I always advocate for whenever I do a book, whenever I do a documentary, whenever I do a podcast. I spend time talking about the victim. So in order to do that here,
Turtle Boy looks like he's going to fall asleep.
I have to talk to people who knew John.
This part doesn't interest him.
Right.
Like,
the problem with that.
He wants it to be all about him.
I mean, quote unquote, knew John. There's a lot of people who knew John, but they act like the only people I ever hear from on 2020 who quote unquote knew John are the people who think Karen Reed's guilty. There is plenty of people who quote unquote knew John who support Karen Reed. And I'm not sure if you got a chance to talk to any of them.
Nobody that's close to the family.
Yeah. I was going to say,
I'm aware.
I would love to know. I've not heard that at all.
Yeah.
No.
I've spoken to one. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and of course, talking about the attacks too, right after the 2020 thing, Turtle Boy is attacking Tara, John's ex-girlfriend, who seems like, a lovely, well-spoken, articulate person. And she's not coming out attacking the Free Karen Reed mob.
Not at all.
She's just coming out to speak up for John and talk about how that mob has attacked her, which they demonstrated
They turned that into something so gross. They're like, look at her. She's still obsessed with him 20 years later. She cared about him. You can have ex-boyfriends or girlfriends that you care about, that you don't want dead, that you want justice for. And they made it like this weird thing. And it wasn't. It was her missing her friend. And he just made it so ugly. He always does that.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Spoken to one. So, and what I want to say about that is that I've also spoken to people who are just afraid to come forward because of the attacks that they will get. They're afraid to come out and speak because of the attacks they'll get. There's also people who have signed deals for, Netflix and other things who can't speak.
Right.
Well, they lied to you. I know the one person completely lied. There's no deal.
No. Since the time we spoke, I've spoken to several.
See, he's telling the truth that obviously people have signed deals so they can't talk, but
Right.
Turtle Boy the reason it caused anxiety with Turtle is you could see it in his face because he doesn't have a deal. So, I mean, I wish those people hadn't signed those deals because now it limits their ability to get the word out or our ability to get the word out and change the narrative before the next trial.
I know.
So I really think it was unfortunate too. But Turtle Boy's upset about it because where's my deal? Where's my deal?
Everybody else has the deals and he doesn't. That's the problem.
Who actually have deals in place with and they just can't. They're not obligated to speak.
We'll see. We'll see. Some of those people, if I ever see any of those people on Netflix special, I'll admit I'm wrong. But I'm telling you right now that none of those people ain't never going to be on Netflix because a documentary. I mean, they could try a documentary from the perspective of the McAlberts is literally burning fucking money. Like that's the kind of project you do if you don't want to make money. Like,
I don't mean that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking more closer to.
On all.
What do you think about that, Karen?
I mean, I'm thinking to myself, when that documentary comes out, whoever produced it, created it, and Netflix are going to be rolling in the dough. I mean, look at the 2020 episode. That took off like wildfire. So, and that's because it's the first time that anybody has seen anything from the other side on mainstream media and balanced. So he's wrong. I mean, it pisses him off that he's wrong, but he's wrong. It's going to be major.
Well, I think he's partly right.
Yeah.
Okay. But this is the difference between responsible journalism and what he does, or what Sean does, or what young Jelly does. Okay. If there's no question that conspiracy draws, right? It's, the show Ancient Aliens has been on for like 15 years, right? I mean, it's not, if the idea that aliens built the pyramids is much more interesting than the idea that Egyptian slaves built the pyramids, Sure. So, and so I think he's correct in that sense, but that doesn't mean that everybody's going to play the conspiracy angle because some of these people are journalists and have a sense of conscience about them and understand that this is a cult.
But I should back up and say this, and I think this even about my content and yours, that when people are done with the conspiracy stuff and they want to actually look into what's really going on, that at some point, the people like us and the Netflix that's about the McAlberts, then people are going to be like, wait, let me watch that. Let me see another point of view. Once they get through that initial fun of the conspiracy, similarly to what we did, and we're like, let me ask questions. Let me look around. Then those things are going to take off. It's like once that fun and they realize, this can't really be, they're going to look into the sources that are actually truthful. So he might be right in the beginning, but I think it might turn as time goes on.
Yeah, I'm not saying that people won't watch it at all. What I'm saying is but the
conspiracy, of course it does.
It always sells. And the thing too is like once you get the explanation that this was just a hit and run, there's kind of no reason to watch my channel again. There's kind of no reason to watch, and because it's just a hit and run. But for the people that believe it's a conspiracy, they're all stirred up about it and they're going to keep watching it. So
it's interesting.
Right.
Our side, on my side.
No, I'm talking about the O'Keefe family themselves, and that's
right.
Right. I'm also talking about someone very close to Karen, someone very, they're very close that you hooked me up with, who just can't speak because of obligations to documentary people.
Did you get a chance to talk to Natalie? What did you say? She wants nothing to do with this. Wow. She's a talker. I mean, that's interesting because Natalie loves to talk.
Natalie likes to talk to people one-on-one.
Right.
Natalie does not want any part of being part of any documentary or being on the news.
Never did. And she never did, Kevin. And both you and I have spoken to Natalie. And for him to come out, and this is what bothers me so much, he would come out and say, all she wants is attention. She just wants friends. She wants this. She wants that. When none of that was the truth at all. She wanted nothing to do with it. Her family wants her to have nothing to do with it. She just wants to talk to who she wants to talk to, and she doesn't want to be a part of any of this. So for him to say that, it's just it's so false, and it's so the opposite, like usual, of what the truth is. It's crazy.
I mean, I don't think she'd get mad at me for saying this. The Netflix people were out there last week and took her and her husband to dinner and did everything they could to try to get them, but neither one of them wants. any part of it, and so they're just not going to do it. And
Nope.
but see, he can't understand that because he's not able to put himself in someone else's shoes.
Right.
That's the nature of a psychopath, and
Absolutely.
he is not able to understand because in his existence, all he thinks about is being the center of attention.
Yep.
So he doesn't understand that not everybody's like that.
Right. And she hasn't been like that since day one. And that's why his little spin that he tried to do about her never added up, because that's not what she wanted. You know, she actually
Right.
probably didn't even want to be the go-between, but she was trying to be a good friend. And then now it snowballed, and here she is.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I mean, she's the reason kind of that I got. I mean, not the reason, but like, you know, she, as you know, for the first month or so, she was heavily involved in helping me out writing these stories and getting to the bottom of this. But interesting, she doesn't want to be involved now. But can you give us any insight on who you've spoken to that that no one else has? Is there anyone out there?
Yeah. Well, you've spoken to them, but
oh, are we allowed to say that? Are we allowed to say who or what, like what these people, who these people are, or is that something you want to say?
Let's hold that between me and you, close to the vest there.
Okay. Okay. So, but
it
is someone that's never been heard before and hasn't been on in 2020 or anything like that.
Absolutely. And
okay.
Someone who is very important, very, very important.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from whoever that person is, and maybe there's more than one of them. We'll see.
I you know, and look, and we've talked about this, you and I also want to say something too that is important to me to say, that, and I don't know if this your people, your fans, Turtle Riders,
correct.
If they're, I think most might be, or some may be aware of this, but I've seen some criticism of you and some really bad, nasty attacks on your marriage and your fathering, and I've spent time with you and your kids, and you know that none of that's true.
Well,
none of that is true. So that's the type of shit that I stay away from. You know, I when people tell me this, they tell me that. You know, I've heard all kinds of different things about you, things you've done. Look, I'm not interested in stuff that hasn't been proven. People haven't been charged for. People haven't been put in jail for. Because it's all just bullshit talk to me, you know. So I'm interested in the truth, you know.
Right.
I'm interested in the facts, the truth, and I guess
he has a pained expression at that. The truth is the enemy.
Yeah. And you know, I almost kind of feel bad. I mean, maybe this is how Phelps really feels, or maybe he feels that he has to kind of like keep it a little bit even because this podcast is coming out. You know, I don't know how he really feels. I don't know him. I just feel like if he has heard some of the things that Turtle Boy's done in the past, and I'm talking pre-Lindsay, pre all of this, you know, with the ex-girlfriends and sextortion and things like that, and his wife, those things, you know, would kind of put a bad taste in your mouth as Michael. I keep calling him Michael Phelps. That's the swimmer, right?
Yes, it is. Yep. Gold medals. Yep.
So I keep confusing them, but yeah, I feel like he probably is trying to just not think about those things. But it's hard to, you know, that's what makes his character.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And just guys, but when we're done this, we're gonna got a special treat for you. We're gonna go over something that we've hinted at before, but in a funny way. The free Karen Reed face.
That's going to be fun.
Too, I'll say that, you know, an isolated clip and 144 characters is not a good fact. You know what I mean? You know, with a case like this, and as you know, I mean, I've done hundreds of murder cases over the years. I've written books about 50 of them, and this case here, it's so important to look at the totality of this case, not sections of it, not chosen pieces of the whole, if you will. It's important to look at this case as a totality, especially when we get into the investigation part of it. Yeah, I'm not going to answer that question.
You don't want to. I mean, that's what people ultimately want to know. Is
well, you know, and here's the thing. I mean, I'm not gonna. That's not part of what I do. I mean, I'm in this. I'm a central guy. I'm coming out in this, and I'm presenting the facts. You know.
Okay, so devil's advocate here, because I get that, and we've
talked about this amongst ourselves. You know that. You know how I feel about certain aspects of this case, and how I feel about other aspects of this case.
Right.
And I could tell you this: murder is not complicated.
No.
When you investigate, well, when you look at any murder, it's not.
He just gave it away how he feels, I think. Don't you think, Karen?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not a mind reader, but just you could tell by the reaction. I'll even replay it for a second. And his reaction to Turtle Boy's comment.
Of the whole, if you will. It's important to look at this case as a totality, especially when we get into the investigation part of it. Yeah, I'm not going to answer that question.
You don't want to. I mean, that's what people ultimately want to know.
Well, you know, and here's the thing. I mean, I'm not going to. That's not part of what I do. I mean, I'm in this. I'm a central guy. I'm coming out in this, and I'm presenting the facts. You know.
Okay, so devil's advocate here, because I get that, and we've
talked about this amongst ourselves. You know that. You know how I feel about certain aspects of this case, and how I feel about other aspects of this case.
Right.
And I could tell you this: murder is not complicated.
No.
When you investigate, well, when you look at any murder, it's not complicated. And usually the most simplest explanation is the explanation. There are anomalies, of course, but usually the simplest explanation is the explanation. So I am not going to be coming out and saying one way or the other here. I'm going to allow people to speak, you know, and you know, you do a lot of the speaking. Other people speak, as you mentioned. You did mention,
because I'll just say that. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mentioned what? I want to hear that sentence.
Well, you mentioned Sean, but you did mention to me, you know, hey, you know,
Sean has his sources and I have mine. It's like that's one thing. People always ask me about Sean's tweets, and I'm like, I always say the same thing. I have no fucking clue who Sean in the Gulf talks to, so I can't verify.
What do you think, Karen?
I mean, it's so funny to me when Sean and Turtle Boy try to like not back each other up, but still kind of back each other up, you know, because Sean's stuff is so crazy that it's like way out there. And then we have Turtle Boy, who's like a layer down. And then
that's his way of saying, I have no fucking idea where Sean comes up with this shit.
Yeah, exactly. Without totally saying, you know,
that was the nicest thing he could say. He could figure out to do it.
Yep.
To me, you know, hey, you know.
Sean has his sources and I have mine. It's like that's one thing. People always ask me about Sean's tweets, and I'm like, I always say the same thing. I have no fucking clue who Sean in the Gulf talks to, so I can't verify or deny anything he has to say. But he does his thing, and I do mine, and I like Sean. That's my policy on Sean.
Oh, you can't argue with the experience he had.
It's a policy, Karen.
Yeah.
So which tells you he's not even saying he actually likes him. When you say I like someone and then you say that's my policy, you're saying I'm not going to stir up the apple cart, so I'm going to say this. That's
right. And let me take this moment to point out that their last blow up was months back, right? And this was what it was about. So Sean had found out that Turtle Boy was talking about Karen's guilt in front of Bradle and one of his ex-girlfriends. So, of course, the girlfriend heard this and now knows that Turtle Boy knows Karen is guilty and that Bradle knows Karen is guilty. So Sean gets wind of this and he does this crazy post on X like, you never talk about inside info in front of the gumad, all this shit. Like it's a mafia war, you know? He's like, you never let that slip. So he does this long post, and then now they're like fighting, you know? And he messages me on the side, Sean, and he's like, go watch us. We're fighting on Twitter. And I'm like, dude, you blocked me, because he always blocks me and unblocks me. So I'm watching this fight, and I'm like, is he seriously admitting that he knows that Turtle Boy gave out this information in front of his lawyer, and he's this pissed about it that he's putting it out there? So somehow Karen must have gotten to both of them. And then they end up having their little like YouTube war about it. And it's like not even a war. It's like not even an argument. They're just like, all right, let's agree to disagree. And everybody forgot about it. So I think they got Karen was like, cut the shit. Like, I don't want to hear it from either of you. Yeah. So, but it was so funny that he had deleted the post, of course, of the one, accusing Turtle Boy of doing that. But they all know. They all know. And one of these days, people are going to figure that out.
So Karen's the godfather, huh? She put down the orders.
She controls all. Oh man, it's so.
We need a name for that, like the Vodfather or something like that.
Yeah, the Vodfather. That's great.
Yes. Right, and that's why I spoke to him. I mean, you can't argue with over 30 years of law enforcement experience. So I'd like to have some of that experience into the podcast and see what he has to say. I mean, when he starts making allegations, I need to see the sources. I need to back that stuff up.
And you've asked me about a couple of those, about Sean's tweets, and I'm like, I have no fucking clue. Like, I don't know. Sean's got his sources. I got mine. That's my policy on Sean.
Yeah. So now what were you going to ask me?
I was going to ask, I was just going to say this. It's like, because I get that you do true crime, and in most stories, you want to share both sides of it. And I get that. To me, and to a lot of my followers, when they look at this, it's like, this ain't that story. Like, it would be like if you were a historian, or if you're Ken Burns and you're like, you know what, I'm going to make a documentary on the Third Reich, and I want to get Hitler's perspective. You know what I mean? I just want to get his perspective. Like, tell us why gassing the Jews was a good thing. Like, why? Tell me why you think that. Like, we should really hear from. That's the way the majority of people watching right now. That's the way we view this. Is that like the other side is fucking stupid, and like.
What do you think?
Oh my God. So the other side is stupid. He's going to mention you soon and say, that we're just like the biggest idiots. So, I mean, this is an extreme example that he's giving, and he's doing that for a reason. He's really trying to get this guy to not ask any questions from anybody else who may have a different idea. But I think this guy knows better. I really do. I mean, he spoke to you, so it's probably.
See, I think there are examples of things in history and crimes where the facts are so predominant that it doesn't make sense to debate them.
Yeah, there are.
And to me, I would say like the Richard Allen case in Delphi is probably one of them. But there are cases like that, or maybe the O.J. Simpson. But when you know for a fact, but based on Turtle Boy's interviews and the information that went straight to Karen's defense team, that at least nine of the jurors completely dismissed the idea of a conspiracy, because nine of them ended up thinking that she was guilty of manslaughter. Exactly. And the other three, that doesn't mean the other three accepted the idea of a conspiracy. They just may have had some doubt.
Right.
So you're talking at least 9 jurors have completely dismissed a conspiracy theory that he thinks that people are supposed to accept as fact without questioning.
Yeah. Sure. And it's like, I think what they've done with that whole piece, because it doesn't fit their story, is they had focused so hard on charge 1 and charge 3, like, 12 of them completely know she didn't do this or whatever. And they ignore charge 2, which is pretty major. That means these people know that her car came in contact with his body. That's all we need to know. That means they didn't believe the physics guys, the crash daddies, the conspiracy. It means they didn't believe like 98% of what was put out there by the defense. And that is crushing to the defense. So they are going to have to work hard.
Despite a very ineffective prosecution.
Yeah, exactly.
She was 3 votes shy of going to prison for a very long time. Right.
And they're just, they want to ignore it because it doesn't fit. But just think of, if you have a prosecution that really focuses on a lot of the things that we've spoken about that they should, and it seems like this guy is going to, I mean, she's screwed. They can only do better, the Commonwealth, this time around.
The dumbest people in the world are on the other side, the Plevins of the world, the liars of the mentally unbalanced people. It's a very small percentage of the population. And so that's why I think when 2020 tried to produce their whole, like, balanced whatever, it was, it was just all his friends and family on there being like, everybody who thinks Karen Reed is innocent is mean to us and they're booing us, which is a lie. We never booed them. That was a complete.
It's recorded. It was showed in the 2020 episode. I witnessed it.
It was.
It's bullshit. And there's plenty of video of him confronting the O'Keefes.
Yes.
Online, he's called Peg O'Keefe the C word several
Many
times.
times.
He said that he said early on that the entire O'Keefe family deserved to burn in hell because they don't believe in this absurd conspiracy theory that nobody believed, that no sane people really believe in. But
yeah,
that's like equivalent to the very fine people hoax. It's a complete lie. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
Well, first of all, I don't want to ascribe to the opinions you gave about people and all that. That's not, I don't do that. So I and the Hitler thing, I'm just going to stay away from that.
But you got my point with that, right? That like not everything deserves, like not everything is a both sides thing.
And that's not what this is. This isn't a seesaw back and forth. That's not what I'm saying here. I think you are now. Well, let's give it some context because everything deserves context. I have a podcast, Paper Ghosts, and that's an investigative podcast. Me on the ground. The first season, I spent 12 years producing that. The second season, I spent 5 years. The third season, same. So those are investigations that I've conducted with unsolved murders, and I'm on the ground, be it in Canada, in tech, wherever it takes me, and I am investigating that, and I am giving my take on what's going on. That's not what this is. That's not what I'm doing here. So your both sides comment. That's not what this is. This is, I'm trying to figure out the truth here through all the noise. That's what I'm trying to do. And you're the person who you look, and I say this, I've said it before, and I say it in the podcast. Arguably, you have done more research than anybody in this case. I mean, I don't think there's any question.
What do you think about that, Karen?
Yeah, I don't know about the research. I think from day one, he was given exactly what he was supposed to say and do. So has he pushed it and rode the wave? Yeah. But why wouldn't he? I mean, it's paying well, he's got a lot of people following him. So, but I don't think he did any of the investigative part of it at all.
I mean, that theory was given to him. Yeah. And he stayed up all night to write the article. And publish it. So it all took place over the matter of 2 or 3 days.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying he's never done any research after that to break something.
No, he has.
But you gotta. I'm a little forgiving of Phelps here because, again, I don't know. I haven't talked to Phelps. I don't know. I'm just reading the tea leaves here, and he's trying to kind of do his best to kiss Turtle Boy's ass a little bit on this because at the end of the day, he knows that his documentary's not going to make him look too good. But I don't know that. I'm just,
No, I mean, I can kind of tell just based on the body language here, and he's trying to, kind of like build him up and make him feel important. And that's all it really takes for somebody like that with that type of personality. But you could see it in Turtle Boy's eyes and his
He knows.
Yeah. But he's trying to act like he doesn't know. So it really is interesting.
Yeah.
About that. You've had good sources. You've broken exclusive information. You've written, I don't know how many posts.
Yeah. I was at the trial. I became I've been
and people don't understand too. Most of the stuff, a lot of stuff that he does get as breaking news, or it's really all comes from Karen. Yeah. But when he puts it out there, and if it turns out to be wrong, he doesn't correct it.
Never.
Ever.
Never,
that whole first year of this was littered non-human hairs and gaps in library videos.
Oh my gosh,
stuff that we all know for sure now doesn't exist, is wrong. Right. He never corrected it.
No,
he never once corrects. He doesn't correct anything. Doesn't care about.
Go ahead.
No, he doesn't care about his audience having the actual real information.
No, he doesn't want them to have it. That's the whole reason they try to shut everybody else up. He doesn't want them to hear anything else. And the people that have come to me and told me that you and I are the dumbest people involved in this case and blah, blah, blah. When I finally say to them, do you ever listen to the actual show if we're on it together, or just Kevin himself? Do you actually listen to what we're saying? And they're like, no. I'm like, so then how the hell would you know if we're making sense or we're dumb or we're not? You're just following, the narrative of all the other ones. Like, oh, don't listen to them, they're stupid, which is what prevents people from knowing what's actually going on. So he's
down
a master.
there knocking on doors.
Oops, sorry about that.
No, he's a master at getting people to ignore every other source but him.
Yeah.
That's it.
But he's only getting the writers to do it. I mean,
Yeah, we have our own people, but of course it's much larger, that audience. So fine.
Yeah, because it's people that whatever have no lives, and this has become this is their life. This is important to them,
Yeah, they love conspiracy.
So, and conspiracy makes the mistakes or misfortune that they've suffered in their life is now explained, I guess, by larger forces.
Absolutely.
Interviewing people, doing my thing. That no one else did.
So that's an important story to tell. And I will be supplementing that, with other interviews, obviously. And it's not this tit for tat thing. It's not a tit for tat thing. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is, one of my expertise is documents. So I've probably viewed hundreds of thousands of pages of documents in murder cases over 25 years, especially crime scene photos, all of that stuff. So I rely a lot on documents. So there's a lot of documentation in this case, right? So a lot of times when I've shown up at your house or in Southie, wherever, the questions I've asked you are based on what I've looked at in the documentation, and you give your explanation for that, right?
Always come with receipts, always.
Yeah. So I come to you and I say, hey, what happened here? I mean, why, what's this? And then you give your explanation for it. So it's not a thing where I would go and speak to someone on the other side and say, well, Turtle Boy said this. What do you think? That's not what this is at all. It's a narrative. It's a comprehensive narrative of this case, because really, for the most part, we're kind of in a vacuum here in New England. The rest of the country has not heard about this case. It's not like it's not like this is a huge case when you start going out into the true crime world.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not.
I don't know. It got a shit ton of views every time. Like when I go on Law and Crimes or Court TV's thing, and I compare Karen Reed views to like any other, Chad Daybell, like any of the other competing ones, Alec Baldwin, Karen Reed wins every fucking time. Like I think my audience used to be local. It is international now.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is they don't know the case, right? They don't know it like it's known here in New England, like every single twist and turn. They don't know it like that out in the true crime world. A lot of people you mentioned, Karen Reed in the true crime space, Karen Reed, they're like, oh, didn't she the car? What, the police officer? So they don't really know the case, the ins and outs of it is what I'm saying. So this case, this podcast will give everybody a full view of what this case is and the complexities of this case, the complex characters in this case, the liars in this case, the absolute incompetence of law enforcement in this case. So it really is gonna key on a lot of that stuff.
Well, what makes this audience, my audience, is these people are fucking informed, man. The people watching, we're doing a Canton trivia next.
Does informed mean brainwashed? I'm trying to remember.
It has to be, because I mean, is he saying they're knowledgeable? Because that would be even funnier. Informed on exactly what he wants them to say and think. Yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah, listen, I consider Nick Rocco to be very informed.
Yeah.
The problem is that you're not asking logical questions,
right,
in a both sides kind of way to try to get to the truth. I don't mean
logic,
side.
Yeah, you're informed on this side, and that's it. You don't want to know about the other side. So you're well informed on one side and know nothing about the other side.
I mean, I just, when you hear there's a gap in the library video that went back then, And you're like, all right, well, is there? What does that really mean? You know,
Right.
and it just that's a common sense kind of approach, I think. But
It
none of
is.
these people ever asked that question, and it turns out it was just a motion triggered camera, right?
Right. And they still don't
It's
believe
just
that. They still won't admit that.
no,
And they just keep going with it. It's the same people with the dog, even though there's no dog DNA, they're still
Yeah.
pushing that. You know, they're still pushing that Jen convinced Karen that she did it. Things that have not been discussed since way back, or even I guess some is more recently, but they still go with it. So it's just interesting.
that's why we'll show the free Karen Reed face, because it's whenever they're confronted with something like that, because they
Yeah,
somehow
like-
aren't aware of you see that face. It's
Yes.
awesome.
Friday. And I am gonna have to come up with some tough fucking questions, because like if I ask, you know, some basic shit like who texted each other at 2:22? Like let me ask the chat right now. Which two people texted each other, or which two people called each other at 2:22 in the morning for 22 seconds? Go ahead, chat. Tell me which two people did that. Watch how many people are gonna get this answer right. It's gonna be fucking hundreds of people right now. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here they start coming in. Here they start fucking coming in. They're all Brian and Brian. Like that's just one. These people know fucking everything about this case. Like I've never seen anything like it before. How invested people get in the documents. It's just been wild.
And can I say that it's important to say that information is one thing, but having the experience and the context to look at that information is another thing. So you have to really know what you're looking at, what you're looking for, et cetera, et cetera. You have to know, you know, what evidence actually is, what a fact actually is, and what is not. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, I mean, sure.
Let me see if I can rewind this for like about 30 seconds, 20 seconds, just to watch Turtle's face during this, because this is kind of, it's kind of interesting.
You know, what evidence actually is, what a fact actually is, and what is not, right?
He's like, no.
So, yeah, I mean, sure. People watched, a lot of people streamed this trial when it was live. I mean, it was, you know, big news around here. So people know what people said. I don't argue with that. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I got a show coming up about rubber duckies I got to get into now, because if you didn't see the latest thing, Detective Bukaki is going around trying to charge more people with witness intimidation, including one woman who did the crime of leaving a rubber ducky with the letters FKR on it outside of D&E Pizza. Did you happen to see that?
Yeah. I did see that. Yeah.
So I gotta get to business. So I appreciate you coming on, and we're all looking forward to hearing this podcast. And anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, Aiden. You know,
of course,
it's always a pleasure to speak to you. And yeah, I saw one comment there. Be nice to our guest.
That's clear. That's Will. Will's a great guy. Will's a big content creator who's been awesome, and he's another guy I met through this. He lives in Tennessee. He's a true crime guy, I guess it would be his genre before this, kind of true crime with a dash of drama. And he has been he's like me, fully,
and a big dash of grifting.
Oh my gosh, the worst.
Invested in Karen Reed's innocence. I've met him twice. He was just here this weekend, so he's a good guy.
I just wish, but last thing I'll say is I just wish, but it won't happen here in this case, but that people would just be allowed to speak their opinions without being attacked, you know, and especially personal attacks, you know, that to me is where you lose credibility with me, not you, but people out there lose credibility when they start making it personal, because it should be.
Or sent to jail.
Or sent to jail.
Like, that's a big problem. It's a tag. It's like,
dude, you were not sent to jail for your opinion.
Not at all. He loves to
stop saying it.
Right. He
stop saying it.
Oh, that has nothing to do with why you went to jail, though. It's like
I'm trying to avoid calling someone stupid. But anybody that thinks that Turtle Boy went to jail for speaking his mind is stupid.
Right.
Now, people might disagree with those charges or what constitutes witness intimidation. All right, that's a different argument.
Right.
But there's no question he wasn't sent to jail. If he had just been running his podcast, he never would have been charged with anything.
No way. Yeah. It was the events of that night that created all that. But, you know.
No, the
That's
rolling
all.
rally and all the other continuing pattern of trying
Yeah.
of sit and then explaining on his show what his goal was to get these witnesses to change their
And just
testimony.
that's exactly what
That's
he
if
said
that
and did.
yeah. If
I
that's not
mean,
witness intimidation, then it doesn't even there's no such thing.
right, exactly. And they could minimize this rubber ducky thing, but first of all, no adult should be leaving a rubber ducky, period. Number two, that is still intimidating these witnesses. They're putting things like Colin did it underneath and throwing it in front of his father's pizza place. So yeah, you look at it like a stupid thing, it's a rubber ducky, but when there's hundreds of them and it keeps going on and you guys have fun with it, it still is intimidating the witnesses that are in this case. I don't care if it's a rubber ducky or a stuffed animal. It's still a way to try to get to these people and try to piss them off and try to get them to change their testimony.
Or arrested for saying their opinions, which is happening to a lot of people. And but I totally feel you on that, man. I totally feel you on that. I mean, strange hearing this from me, but a guy who is not known to pull any punches. But yeah, it would be nicer if people just tone down a little bit. But I would say, in my opinion, most of the problems come from the other side. Some of the nastiness that comes from the other side, whereas our side.
Is he kidding? I mean, this is what drives me nuts. Even on X, they're like, your side does this, your side does that. This week alone, I have this one guy, his name is Michael something. He's like, you're a fat, disgusting cow. You're this, you're that, all day, every day. And I reshare it just so people see how nasty and disgusting these people are. And I'm like, this is all because you don't like what I think about a case, Like, and that's just one of many. The things they say to you, like, I'm like ready to fight all these people. And I'm glad you ignore 90% of them, but it's hard, and it's like,
yeah, you kind of have to. And I don't, you certainly don't mind the insults, but when people start making stuff up about you, like you're faking cancer, or like you a molested girls above the bar, stuff like that, you're just making stuff up completely, to try to destroy somebody.
Yeah,
and again,
why? Just because he's saying something you don't like?
And it's not just like this is what people have to understand. It's not just this is the nature of social media and there's some crazy people on both sides. No, this is organized, and it's organized by this man.
Yes.
And the people like the Pitbull and some of the other ones, that Haley, that are all in his inner circle. It's what they do. They spread falsehoods deliberately.
Absolutely.
It is effective, because I can tell you, I've talked to a lot of lawyers and prosecutors that have been reluctant or afraid to get involved in this case because they are afraid of what's going to happen to their family.
Oh, I can totally understand that. I really can. I mean, I wasn't going to talk about this last week, but I just want to point out how easily they do it. They were trying to spin this narrative last week that I said that Aiden is a rapist. So they took one of my texts, right? And she wrote, I'm not going to mention her name. She wants all this attention. She wrote, you can't just accuse people of rape. And I wrote, why? They don't need to suffer anymore. Meanwhile, I'm answering the question before that. She cuts off, they don't need to suffer anymore. And they blast this whole thing everywhere that Karen's saying, why can't you just accuse people of rape? And I'm like, what the hell text is this? So I let them have their little games. And then like this week, I'm finally like, this is what the text actually said. So I was saying to her she was accusing Paul O'Keefe of harassing women. And I said, you shouldn't use the O'Keefes. And she's like, why? And I'm like, why? ? They've been through enough. So I'm answering that question. And she uses that to try to spread this narrative that I called Aiden a rapist. And I'm like, what does that even do? Even if I did do that, who cares? But they roll with it and they all share it and they all go with it. And it's Altman and Haley and the new one, Christy. And it's so pathetic because it doesn't really do anything to help them. It just tries to get people. But if people come to me, I'll just be like, here's the real text. I would never do that. So they all do the same thing. There's a whole level, the top level of his cult. That's their job. Like, what are we going to create this week? Who are we going to pinpoint? And, you'll wake up and you'll see, oh, today it's this person. And the next day it's somebody else.
Okay. Sorry, I just got a message from someone. We're almost, Tom, we'll be through this screen in a minute. So just bear with it for a second. I think Tom was unhappy with the way it's looking, but we'll be done with it in a second, though, T. And I have never once myself, publicly or privately, accused him of the R word.
I haven't either.
I know the evidence, and to me, No, I don't want to say
I
anything.
don't want to go there either. I don't want to
you know.
know. I want nothing to do with it. But I said I
Yeah.
just want to wait and see what happens in court.
Yeah.
I want to see her
Yeah.
evidence and his, and that's it. And that
Right.
wasn't enough for them. So then it was like,
Right.
oh, we
Right.
got to destroy her. I'll be right
Right.
back, Ed. I just got to shut this door.
Okay.
If you go down to any, I mean, just you talk to Rita, you go down to any of these things, it's just fucking positivity up the ass outside of these courthouses, man. Nothing but love. Now online, it's a different world, but in person at these events, it is so positive.
You know, and I try to follow people from all the sides, just to step back and look at what they're saying, you know, because I want to keep my hand on the pulse of what's being said, you know, because this division is really an important part of this story. I think it's an important aspect of this story, the division in the community. We see it at the Canton Town Board Select Board meetings. It's
totally.
Again, I just want to say the division is not just the result of the fact that some people think Karen is innocent and some people don't. The division is 100% about the tactics of Turtle Boy and his mob, which are disgusting and are dangerous. So,
you know, it's I've never ever seen any fucking thing like it in my career, and I've been doing this a long time.
Well, so and more to come. So we'll see what happens. But anyway,
Right,
thanks for coming on, Matt.
Peace out.
Peace, T-Bone Grease. Yeah, it should be good, guys. I'm looking forward to the podcast. It comes out. The first part is October 17th, and we'll see what happens. You know, I read the comments in the chat. I saw it all. I think it's going to be good. I do. I really do. And I think, like you said, I'm the main character of the podcast, right? Like I'm the guy he interviewed more than anyone. So if I'm the main character in it and he interviewed me like a bunch of times, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Like he has to talk. Like I said, I'm happy that all he could talk to from the other side was Plevin. Like that's it. That's it. And the O'Keefes didn't want to talk. Oh, they all told him, like I think it was Krusty and a fake victim or something told him that they had like they couldn't do it because they have Netflix deals. There's no Netflix deal with any of these people. And quite frankly, the Netflix deal, like I know shit, man. I know shit. So as you guys know, and I'll tell you this right now, there was a big announcement like months ago that Netflix announced.
do you want to hear this part?
I'm trying to remember. What did he say about this? I mean, I guess
He's gonna. I mean, it's about the Netflix and Gretchen Voss and stuff like that. I personally don't want to hear it, but okay, all right. All right, let me just close this here, and we can go on to the fun stuff in a moment. But anything you want to say before we go on to the Free Karen Reed face?
No, I'm ready for that. I can't wait.
All right, so I'm going to line this up. And well, I have to explain it for a moment before I do it. Let me pull up the share screen. All right. So when I was on somebody else's show about a month ago, and they were both Free Karen Reed people, and they would bring up things. I'm not going to mention, I'm not going to say anything to be unkind, but they would say things, for instance, like, and why would you bring it to the Sally Port? Why would they have told? Why would the state police have towed the vehicle to the Sally Port? And I give them the answer. Yeah. And in their face, they make this face where it just kind of goes. It just drops. It's the funniest thing. I can't quite do it. And I've been thinking. And so when I mentioned that afterwards, that it's the Free Karen Reed face, because I've seen it so many times. I've seen it on court TV. I've seen it in person when you talk to them. And it's whenever you get and. What I realized, there is something different about it. It's more than just somebody hearing something that they don't want to hear. And I was, it was kind of in my head, like, what does this mean? And what I realized is this: inside our brains, we have our unconscious mind, and our unconscious mind tries to protect us from things that we don't like or that cause anxiety, cognitive dissonance. Mm-hmm. And it happens at a level that's right. It's like your unconscious brain, if something is really, really personal to you, and for you to be aware of it, it's going to cause you a whole bunch of existential anxiety. Yeah. Your unconscious brain will prevent that from getting into your conscious brain. So it'll filter out evidence like that. And this is what creates the Free Karen Reed face, because it's more than just that blank look. Every muscle in their face for 1.5 seconds dies. And you get this, I hate to use the word zombies, people get sick of it, but you get this kind of zombie thing, but it's just kind of like, it's almost, and so I went looking for it. I searched on YouTube for just that thing. And of course, it's not real because it's actors, but it's kind of funny. So let's play it.
And everybody loves Friends. Okay, let's see.
I'm pregnant.
There it is.
Ross.
That's the free Karen Reed look.
That absolutely is. It absolutely is.
There it is.
Whenever you're ready.
It's like
And he can't get out of it. He's like, oh.
it's like why did they bring it to the Sally Port? Because it was heated.
Yeah,
they
they don't have
like,
a response. They're not like they're not quick enough to be like, well, So they're just like, and then they're just
really. You're saying there's really no non-human hair, that they just didn't have enough DNA in that particular sample to detect it? And see, if you and I, there's things that we've had questions about on the case, right?
Yeah.
And if somebody gives us the explanation, even if it's not what we thought, we go, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. I'll have to change what I think. They don't do that.
No, they cannot change.
They never do it. They always have this blank look, just like, was it Ross that just got there on that when he found out that his girlfriend was pregnant.
And a good example of that, Kevin, when you were at one of the court, I guess it wasn't the last one, but the one before it, and like some of them were trying to go against you or like ask you questions, and you're like perfectly calm, and you're saying things that are very like general facts about the case that most people would know. And you have like Chrissy Mello, I think it was Chrissy Mello and somebody else, and they couldn't even refute one thing that you said. They're just like, oh, Kevin, get out of here. It's like they cannot even argue back. They don't want to, and they don't have the knowledge to do it. So then they just call you stupid and walk away. So
actually, the better one was the next hearing. I walked in, and Brian from LTL and Mazda Media came over, and they went live so they could ask me questions. And Brian and I said, sure, I'll take on your questions. And Brian started out by asking the question, do you believe the earth is round?
Oh, God.
And I'm like, all right, Brian, come on. No, I believe the earth is spherical, but he's, so his question is
like, you're such an idiot, right?
And he says, then he followed up by, well, do you believe in physics? Brian, I said, Brian, are you about to give me a lecture on physics?
Oh my God.
And so now the crowd you couldn't see it because they're filming me, but there was like about 30 or 40 of them lining up behind them. And they're all angry and they're trying to shout stuff. And I'm like, listen, if you want me to answer questions, go, let him go. And so what he was trying to get to was about the ARCA guys. And so I got their attention. They're all trying to throw questions. And I said, look, the ARCA guys are brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I said, there's nobody more capable than doing an accident reconstruction than the ARCA guys. And you could hear, even though we're outside and there's hundreds of people there, if somebody dropped a pin, you would have heard it.
Yeah.
All their faces, they were transfixed. And then I started explaining that the problem wasn't in their knowledge or their ability. It was in their credibility. And they all had that free Karen Reed look in the face when I started saying, like, for instance, they didn't ask for the text stream. So I had 30. I had an army of free Karen Reed looks. It was awesome. I wish I could have got a picture of it.
I know, that would have been great. But yeah, that's their latest thing to grab onto. But every time they bring that up, I'm like, then why didn't the jury buy into any of that? That's kind of important. They just ignored that too. But they tested 2 theories that were not theories that the Commonwealth put out, and they didn't test the theory that the Commonwealth really thought happened. So there's a reason why. And aren't they, remind me, I feel like I knew this and now I forgot. Aren't they like text stream data specialists or like experts? The 2 of them, the 2.
Yes, they are. They in fact, they published, there's an article on their website published the year before where they explain how Toyota text stream data is something that can get information that even the regular black box can't get, or when you can't get information from a black box. They are experts. They knew that.
And they didn't use it.
And so Kerry sent us a bunch of Sean clips, and I have not watched these. They're all short clips. She promised that most of them will be very funny. Okay. So do you have time to go? Want me to just
what time is it? I need to do what time? I can't even see the.
It's 9:12.
Yeah, I just got to get off by 9:30. So
okay, that sounds good. And is there anything you wanted to say about that other topic before we play the clip?
Nope. Okay. If I think of it, I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Let's pull on.
Sean's been on a rampage, so this should be interesting.
Like this, Higgy. How you like the fact that Chucky Salucci told your little girlfriend, don't ever let my son down that piece of shit's house in Sandwich? Higgy, did you like that? Did you like that, Higgy? Right? Now you get the cops against you, right? He already hates Brian Albert, right? But he found out his 12-year-old kid, or how old he is down at your friggin' house in Sandwich. Right? What the hell you doing, Brian, with kids? You're not a father figure. You're not even a fucking husband figure. You're a shell of a man, right? You're a shell of a man. You always had no confidence at all. To this day, how old are you? 50, 55? You've got no confidence as a man. You're a little pussy. All you had was a fucking badge and a gun. And Brian Albert. And then little short and shiny, all he had was you. You're all a bunch of fucking pussies. And you're all going down. Berkey, you better get ready. I heard you're nice and healthy now. I
mean, Sean, what do you have?
I know.
What did you ever have? The DEA, I don't want me to disrespect it, but it's not an elite federal task force.
No, it's not.
It seems to have been for you just an excuse to drink and then get a pension.
Right.
And now here you, and I don't mean to disrespect that, but now here you are and you're trying to taunt people, but here you're someone that has no interest in the truth at all and is reporting the craziest shit.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope. Go ahead.
Wait, I'm bring up one more thing before, because I saw some people asking you about this, and I don't think you saw it. Have you seen that they're trying to accuse this Braden Carney account of being this guy named Steve? But I know that you had drinks with the actual Braden Carney, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that I had drinks with is not named with Steve.
That's what I thought. So I'm like, why are they? And so they're destroying. They're basically going after this guy Steve and his wife, of course, or not his wife, his fiance. And they're calling their job and they're doing all this kind of stuff. And it's not even him. So I just wanted to check with you because people are like, why isn't Kevin answering about who he is and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't think it was this guy, Steve. So I just wanted to
I don't pay attention to social media anymore. Right. I don't do a lot of shows because I've been so busy. We have a deadline for the book.
Right.
And so I am working really, really hard to try to get this out.
Okay. But, I just wanted to clear that up because it's one of the big things that they're trying to do this week is like bring this guy down. And I'm like,
I'm not going to out who it really is. I can only say that that's not him.
Okay. All right. Let's go back.
That's not him. In fact, it was funny for so long and people were saying that it's Kate.
Right. And he's in everybody.
And I wasn't 100% sure either. And so when I did meet him, there's a part of my mind like Kate's going to walk through the door.
I know.
But
it wasn't Kate at some point. I've been like 8 different accounts this week. So I feel bad for this guy because it's not him and they're doing the Turtle Boy method. So
no, it's totally not.
Okay. Let's see Crazy Sean.
And is that account even still active?
Yeah, I think it is. But he's like, I'm not this guy Steve, but they're going after this guy Steve. So I don't know, how to even stop it. But I just figured if I had the chance to clear it up with you, maybe they'll stop. But they don't listen to us anyway.
Let's reverse. Reached out to me yesterday. Okay, yesterday. Very credible. And they said, John, I don't know what Aiden's talking about, but I told you the truth. I said, okay. From John O'Keefe Sr. to my husband's ears, who's known him for 30 years, said unequivocally that he believes 1,000% in Karen Reed. And he said Carl Dougal took that car and had it fixed and got it back before the state police came 4 days later to inspect it. That's cool.
It's crazy. I've told this story before, but in case there's somebody new here, I was on the phone with Sean. And when he gave me his theory that the car had been whisked away, but it was his theory. And the reason he had the theory was because he kept talking about, there's another guy with a physics degree, apparently. He kept saying physics tells you that if Karen backed in hard enough to do damage to her car, then there must be damage on John's car. And so I said, well, John, how did somebody, he didn't know who at the point. He was saying that somebody took the car away during that first day. And I said, you mean to tell me with the grieving family inside, nobody noticed that John's car disappeared? Right. And he thought about it for about 20 seconds. There's silence. And he's on the other end of the phone. And finally went, Paul did it. And so he's gone back and forth on this theory between it's Paul, between it's Carl Dougal. Right. But none of it's based. He's the one that invented that right on that spot. And I don't know So now he's got someone here that's supposedly
Who
telling
is
him that.
that? Who's
But he
he
just these idiots that just whisper stuff to him. He doesn't do anything to check if that's a real person that has whispered to him, and who knows, he might be seeing ghosts at this point.
Well, what's funny is back in the day, like way back when I was talking to Sean as well, we spoke on the phone once, and he gave this same example, and he told me that it was Paul and Carl. And I said to him, and I probably have told you, I said to him, you know what? Don't say that out loud. Don't put that on the internet. I'm just telling you, it's going to make you look really bad. Even if you believe that, I'm just trying to help you out because it's a crazy thing to say. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to say it, but it is interesting. And his typical Sean stuff. I'm like, it's interesting, but it's not true. And it's a fun little twist, but it's not true. Are you going to think that you could convince people that his own brother and best friend all of a sudden decided like, hey, he's dead. Let's pin it on Karen without knowing that everybody else was pinning it on Karen? I'm like, it makes no sense. So then what I would say to him later on, like, you remember when you used to say to me that it was Paul and Carl? He's like, well, I never had that in writing. So he was all proud that he never messaged me that. But now he's saying it on video himself. So I don't know what's happened at this point.
Because I told him the same thing. I said, you can't say stuff like that. And he was back then, at least he understood that you can't.
Yeah.
But now he's just gone off the edge so far he doesn't care anymore,
Right. It's a shame.
So let's see. I got another one
loaded
up.
For a long time. And there's people that I've grown up with, right? They were very sexual for a long time, early in their life. And the fact is, right? They were so oversexed. They didn't care. They didn't care who was down on them. Guy, girl, dog, goat, whatever the fuck you want.
I don't know. I'm seeing these for the first time too, so I don't know what to comment. Sometimes I don't know.
I don't know. I think the biggest thing I've noticed this week, he's obsessed with Brian Albert. Obsessed. Yeah. Like every post is about Brian Albert. And then I'm like thinking, and somebody commented, like, did Sean try to become a Boston cop? Like, we got to look into this. Maybe he wasn't able to get in.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's like a jealousy there. I'm definitely feeling a jealousy there. I don't know if it's true, but something is weird. He's really hardcore going against Brian Albert right now.
Hopefully in these clips is the one where he believes that the chief of police
I saw that
who has a very unfortunate name. I forget what it was. I forget. It wasn't Dick Hertz, but it was something like that.
Ooh, that's a tough one, yeah.
And he believes he's sending out assassins to kill Sean.
Oh God, he wishes he was that important.
Nerds, right? This one girl, what is she? She's, I'm a writer. I know a lot about this case. I don't say mofos and fuckers. And she couldn't even spell it. Come on, you woke. What are you? Come on. Who are you, Tuesday? Oh, I don't want to give you my name, Kevin. I'll just go by Tuesday. You're a Tuesday Well. That's right, BLT. That's an old Tuesday Well. That's a blast from the past. Yeah, Tuesday Gazette. She's a little half-ass. She doesn't know shit about the case. She doesn't like my language. Well, guess what, pal? John didn't like getting his head bashed in. How about that, Tuesday? Think about that when you're simping for these other half-asses, right? John didn't like having his head fucking bashed in like a watermelon, did he? Nor does Karen like being framed. Let's get real. Let's get in the real game here. Tuesday, Joel from fucking whatever your name is. I don't know.
This is the last guy that should be talking about. Let's get real. Let's get in the real game. Reality is not even a rumor in his world anymore.
I know, and I still sometimes I'm like he's playing a game. And then other times I'm like, no, he really believes it. I still go back and forth. He cannot be this stupid. I hate to say that word, or this crazy, Yeah. And at one point he posted, because I was like, you need to get your brain checked. You need a brain scan. And I guess maybe 2 weeks ago, he's like, Karen, you'll be happy to know I got my brain scan. I was like, oh, good. Can they give you something? Like a lobotomy maybe? But I don't know what's going on with him.
I don't know. I mean, he's got what we famously used to call in these parts an Irish sunburn on all these clips.
Yes. Absolutely. But
not going to imply
he said
anything.
He doesn't drink. I don't know. He got mad last time he said that, but
I hope not. I mean,
right.
I don't know.
I know.
Let's see this.
Well, you
next
know what,
one.
Kev? Let me run because I got to go put the little
Okay.
guy to bed anyway. But I will
To
pop into the
remember what that little
Sorry.
mofo,
Sorry.
Jarhead
Bye-bye.
Marine.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is Karen from True
Thank
Crime
you.
and Some
I'll
Wine.
see you soon.
We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. Thank you very much to Karen. Always fun having her on. And I will get to the comments and the starred comments that I have to thank people for. So let's just run this clip.
Said on the stand, right? He said, well, there was just me and Proctor, and I don't know who the rest of the people were, something to that effect, right? He was very hands off. And then he said, but we never went anywhere near that taillight. Oh, really, mofo? I got you busted, you little bitch. I got you busted big time, you little fag. Yeah, you are. You set up a woman, and I tell you, we got you. We got
Why is he talking like this? It's unbelievable. And you have to understand, this is a guy that for 7, 8 months was telling me that a Canton police officer who has since retired, whose name is Brian Wanless, everybody's name, every other male out there in that area seems to be named Brian Wanless, who owns an auto body shop, and that the conspirators, the troopers, forced him to take off Karen's taillight. Now, this was his main piece of believing, that there was a conspiracy, that it all took place in the Sally Port, even though there was no time, even if that operation took place like a pit stop, there was no way to get that evidence to the crime scene. But it doesn't matter to Sean. Reality doesn't matter to Sean at all, not even a little bit. All right, we got a few more clips. Let's check out this one.
because we all know John was never in that house, ever in that house.
Oops, that was very quick.
Yep, it's done. It's over with. Because we all know John was never in that house, ever in that house. Yep, it's done. It's over with.
I don't know what this context of is, because obviously that's not what Sean believes. We know that John O'Keefe was never inside that house. That's the data. That's the evidence. You might as well believe in Bigfoot. Well, I like Bigfoot, but you're believing in something here that makes no sense. The GPS shows that his phone never went inside the house. So there's a couple more clips, but I guess let me get to the comments first. So I promised I'd get back to it. Oh, let me get this out. So this is from Bombay Bad Boy. I wonder if he's actually messaging from Bombay. That would be cool. Why would the feds hire professionals to look into the death of John O'Keefe if the state is carrying on its own investigation? What could the reasons possibly be? This is the only big remaining mystery in the case to me as to what the feds were up to. Now, look, there are a lot of reasons when you look at the way the feds conducted themselves. Those are the clues that what they did was corrupt. Okay, just off the top of my head. They seem to have launched this investigation without predication. All right, no, they did it backwards. The way an investigation, usually you start out with the FBI investigating reports of a crime. And as they gather enough evidence, they take that to the prosecutors, and the prosecutors decide whether there's enough to pursue it and to eventually subpoena seat a grand jury, a federal grand jury. This investigation, the federal investigation, began in August of 2022, way back then, when Karen and her team walked into the office and spoke with the then was called first U.S. attorney. So this was the position right underneath U.S. attorney, very powerful position in the United States government. His name was Josh Levy. They walked into his office. We don't know how. Somebody has a connection to Josh Levy, whether it's Karen or someone in her family or someone on her legal team. And they convinced him that there was something worth investigating here. And before long, they had so like I said, it's upside down. He's sending out the FBI agents to look into this, and he's doing it in a way that is making clear to those FBI agents, we're not after the truth. we're after helping Karen. And there's because those FBI agents were coordinating for over a year, and probably still are, directly with PR people, social media PR people used by Karen. Why? I'm not going to mention her name again, but I've given the name of the FBI investigator who was working with Sean. Why? Sean has no evidence on this case. Sean is just a social media guru that works with Karen, and he's down in Florida. But yet here, this FBI agent is coordinating with Sean. That's improper. And there's no honest investigation would have that going on. Now, why are these FBI agents doing this? Well, they're obviously trying to please their master, Josh Levy, who now is the U.S. attorney. And the only people above him are the district attorney. The attorney general in Washington, and then the president. There's only two people in the U.S. government above him. And Merrick Garner, I believe is his name, right? And a very politically corrupt kind of guy. And I'm not saying that for a political reason. Just there's a lot of evidence of it. So, what other evidence is there? See, the way it works, and I've talked to retired FBI and other retired feds, is that when the feds get information is supposed to be a one-way street. When the feds get information, that's it. They don't give you anything back. It's a one-way street. But these guys were working weirdly, very closely with Karen's team. And in less than a year ago, so November of last year, Josh Levy, again, the U.S. attorney at the time, and still, did a conference call with Alan Jackson and David Yannetti. Probably Karen too, but I don't know if Karen was on that call. That's wrong. That's inappropriate. That doesn't go on. And in that call, they asked, he told her defense team to try to get a delay in the trial. Now, I know it's a somewhat common for a defense team to try to get delays in a trial. It's often at least if nothing else, they're trying to avoid that day when their client may have to go to jail. But there are sometimes reasons where you don't want to do that, where you actually want to hurry things up. So, for instance, the way it turned out here near the end, they actually wanted to go to court earlier because they were worried about the lab that did the testing on the hair that was found in the car was taking a long time to get the results. So there was a point where the defense wanted to go to court and get this going because in the hopes that they would do that before the lab finished testing on that. So it's not automatic that they want to delay the trial, the defense. And for some reason, the U.S. attorney was telling them to do that. And that's evidence was put into a document, an official court document by the state. So it seems to be pretty well established that they did that. So what is really going on here, Bombay? We don't know. Why is the federal government? I mean, I'll give you a final example. They hire these ARCA guys that are independent. Their company does accident reconstructionists. They are extremely qualified. They hired these guys, but these guys understood that they were not hired to get to the truth. They're hired. Why is the feds getting involved in the first place? Well, that's itself is just a wink signal that they don't believe what the state is saying, that a vehicle caused this accident. So these guys understood, whether they were directly told or not by Josh Levy, they understood that the feds were investigating this for a reason. They didn't believe that report. But the feds didn't give them that text stream data. Now, to not give the vehicle data over to the experts that you've hired to do accident reconstruction, this is like not giving the body to the medical examiner when you ask the medical examiner to do an autopsy. You just don't do it that way. It's the most important piece of information. And so Nurse Kim has pointed out that the text stream data was not available until February of 2023. So a long time ago, year and a half ago. And that's 2 months. It might have been January, but it was 2 months after the ARCA guys were hired. But you mean those ARCA guys, if this was an honest thing, would have been pressing, saying, hey, listen, we need the text stream data. And Josh Levy would have said, okay, we don't have it yet. And they would have said, okay, well, get us that data as soon as you can. because that vehicle data had, among other things, the speed of the car. And these guys are building cannons that fire cocktail glasses at the taillight. So they wanted to know the speed at which that taillight was coming towards them. It's physics, right, LT? That's physics. You want to know the speed of the vehicle. So this was not an up and up investigation. And I don't, if I didn't have the other evidence to look at on the other side, that evidence that I don't give the state or the troopers or the district attorney's office a benefit of the doubt that they're honest, that they're doing a good job. I don't. I never will. Nobody deserves a benefit of the doubt in anything. You look at the evidence, but there was no opportunity to plant taillight pieces. There was no way it could be done. And once you realize that, you realize there's no way Karen could be innocent, because you would have to plant those taillight evidence, those taillight pieces. But then there's also, you can look at the vehicle data and the way it correlates with John's phone data. I've talked about it many times, so I'm not going to go into it. But that correlation, that's not something the state could have manufactured. Trooper Paul wasn't even given John's phone data. He didn't know it. Doesn't know it now, I don't think. So there's no way that he could have manufactured that, if that kind of thing even could be manufactured. And the defense was given that same data, and they did not suggest that Trooper Paul manufactured that data. I mean, you run the software and it prints out the data. So, not saying that there aren't, in programs like that, sometimes there are ways to question it. So, like 227 turned out to be bogus data that was run by that particular version of Celebrate. But in this case here, it's not just that it concluded or showed that Karen went in reverse at a certain speed, so 24.5 miles an hour, for a calculated distance of 62 feet. It's that correlation between that and the phone data, which is so precise. Nobody could have manufactured that. There's no way that could be an error on the part of Trooper Paul. There's no way. So we need to get to the bottom of just what the feds are doing and why. Were they duped? Was it corrupt? And when if you were duped and you don't correct the record, like Turtle Boy knows he was duped, he doesn't correct the record. Sean really knows too. When the GPS came out last September that showed that Sean never went in the house, Sean went quiet for 3 weeks. He knew it was over, but he couldn't handle it. So he just came rushing back with crazier and crazier theories. But Bombay, it's a good question, and we have to get to the bottom of it, and hopefully someday we will. James Clay, thank you very much for the generous donation. I appreciate it. And he says, Karen Reed hit John. It's not that complicated. And at the end of the day, it really isn't. Bombay has another. Respect your viewers and respond to super chats, please. I had a guest on and we were going over that stuff. So I do try to respond as quickly as I could, Bombay. But keep in mind, if I can't respond right away, but I always will by the end, if you had to go to sleep or had something else going on, you can always come back and get the response later at flat. So, but we do take on. And the dude abides always has some wisdom for us. Thank you, dude. The fool wanders, the wise man asks. So this is really the problem with so many people that are fooled by this conspiracy, is they don't ask questions. There are fundamental, basic questions that reveal the truth. You have to keep it. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to be committed to asking these questions over a length of time. Now, most of these things actually have been answered now because of the trial. But what you don't want to do is, you were fooled by things when Turtle Boy first released the defense theory on April 18th, 2023, and you just bought into it and said, wow, that's weird. Why would they bring it to the Sally Port? That's weird. That's suspicious. Why would Berkowitz drive by and find those taillight pieces? That's suspicious. But if you just stop asking questions, you don't really care about the truth. Oh, that was a dude. Sorry. You got a double play, dude. All right. Joey just saying, Braden isn't Steve, like Karen isn't. No, Braden's not Steve. I can only tell you that. I have him in my cell phone number now. He contacted me a few weeks ago to go out to have a beer again, and I said I have to wait until. I said I'm glad to. I liked him, and I said, but I'm going to have to wait until after the book is the manuscript is in, because I've got a deadline on it, and so I will go out. But I did meet him in person, and his name was not Steve. And I don't follow the social media stuff. Karen said something about the guy being engaged. So the guy that I went out with this summer for a couple beers was not engaged. Now, he may be by now, but his name isn't Steve. Ken says justice for Steve guy. That's great. JSG, JSG. And Carrie, you got us the clips. Thank you, Carrie. Said, thank you, Kevin. What we do without you. I mean, it sucks that you're stuck with me. I wish you had somebody younger, better looking, that doesn't accidentally take a shirt off, and somebody more entertaining. But I'm in a position where I'm able to do this and not worry about losing my job, things like that. But if people have asked me the question too on this side, if your circumstances were different, if you were younger, would you still have stood up to this mob? And, it's like anything. You never know unless you're in that situation. But I have, ever since I was a little kid, I'm certainly no fighter or no tough guy, but willing to stand up against bullies. It's always, for some reason, had a bad reaction for me. And when I was in the first grade, there was a girl who was on, they were more than crutches. They were something, I don't know what she had, some kind of muscular disease. And so she had braces for her legs, and she had braces on her arms that she basically had to walk using a combination of her legs and her arms. And so her name was Elizabeth. I would imagine she died a long time ago. I don't know what she had, but I can remember I grew up in Lawrence, and it was pretty lawless on the playgrounds there, unsupervised. Any fights we ever had there were never broken up by teachers, ever. There was even crazier shit that went on. And this is first grade, second grade, third grade. It was completely unsupervised. And so these 4 tougher kids in school were picking on her, trying to pull her arms out from underneath them. She used them as legs. And she was trying to fight them off. She was tough. She was like spirited. She was trying to fight them off. And I tried to fight them off with her. This was not a girl that I had any romantic interest in. And I say that just because you're in the first grade. Even in the first grade, I already liked girls, but this was not someone I had that kind of interest in. But I just saw her being picked on. And somehow she got my number, and every night started calling me at home. So it was kind of like a first girlfriend in that sense. I didn't look forward to the calls. But anyways, yeah, so I do think I would have maybe done something to try to do the right thing. I've kind of always tried to do that. Not always well, not always effectively, and not always. There are times I don't do it. So in this case here, it took me way too long to stand up for victims. I watched what was going on, and that voice in my head was saying, so like watching Jen McCabe be harassed in the stands for her daughter's sporting event bothered me, but I still didn't stand up for it. And I still went on the Turtle Boy show after that. So it's a process for everybody to learn how to do the right thing. Now, some people did it quicker. Some people, much quicker than me, knew right away that what was going on was wrong. I didn't see them, but I'm sure they were there, and they, wherever they could, publicly tried to say that what that was going on was unacceptable. It took me too long to do that, and so I got to live with that. But I did at least keep asking questions, and my conscience nagged at me. And so that's where it's at. So we can play another Sean clip and see if this one is funny. So James said, murder is not that complicated. Occam's razor. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear from that interview that Phelps is not buying into the conspiracy theory, but I'm not speaking for him. I don't know what he thinks. He interviewed me, and that's it. I'm not someone that is friends or know him outside of that. So his questions didn't really suggest either that he believes in it, but I don't. It was a long interview, and I don't actually remember all the questions. So we'll just have to see it and judge it for what it is. And I think his position is he was telling the truth on that. I don't think he wants to adopt a position. He wants to let people speak. Unfortunately, I don't think there was really anybody else besides me. I did get him in touch with John Jackson, and hopefully he interviewed John. But I don't think this has been the problem with this case is people are stuck with me, because there hasn't been a lot out, so a lot else out there. Let's play another clip of Sean and see if we can get some amusement out of this.
Of a Boston cop, the defendant slammed into the back of that car. Right? She kissed it, whatever. Evidence was on the car. They had to get rid of the evidence, right? I don't give a shit who did it. I don't give a shit who knew. John Sr. knows. John Sr. has told his closest friends. And Kyle Dougal, you mofo, you lying son of a bitch, you go to that courthouse, and then I don't even know what the story was. Then you bang out, you give a little shoulder to Karen, a woman, right? Do you beat up your wife? I don't know. Why would you ever do that to Karen, right? But you never, now I know why Kenny always protected you from me, right? I just wanted to talk to you, Kyle, baby. I wanted to get it from you.
That's weird. I have not seen, I believe, this video of the incident with Carl in court. And my understanding from good sources, including court officers, is that what he's describing isn't what happened. Karen is very aggressive, and she basically charged through him, expecting him to get out of the way very quickly. And he either didn't get out of the way or didn't get out of the way quick enough. And she ended up kind of running into part of him. But to my knowledge, there's no truth to the idea of him shouldering her or hipping her or anything like that. And they just took Carl out of the court because she's the defendant. And you're going to give her the benefit of the doubt because you don't want anything to interfere with the trial. So that's my understanding. Maybe someday the video will come out. But this is from multiple witnesses in there, including journalists too. And also from court officials who saw the tape. But again, I haven't seen it myself. So again, Sean had the old Irish sunburn there. So I don't know what's going on with this dude, but it has to be affecting his judgment.
See, I do know for sure that Brian had a hit list, and you people in Canton, you know this. I listen. I'm embarrassed by it. All right, but let's face it, he had a hit list. All right, when he came out of the Marine, he was a Marine too. Brian Albert was a Marine. When he came out of the Marines, that was it. He said, "That's it. I'm going to attack every guy that ever called me a P or ever spit on me or ever beat me up or whatever." And he did. He did. And I feel horrible about that. Okay.
See, this is the problem where you have a mob turned up and Sean either doesn't care about the truth, but he doesn't vet anything. Just anybody that's telling the craziest stuff, he's going to believe it. Just even as an example that would happen to me in the spring, I went to Canton for the first time, and I went with Dave McGrath and his 10-year-old son. And, we wanted to avoid being seen stirring anything up. But we went into Cassie's Corner convenience store, A, because we were thirsty, and B, because it was on the discovery list. They didn't use it, but there was video from Cassie's on the discovery list. It's a tiny store. You can only fit a few people in it. It's the smallest store I think I've ever seen. And so we went in there and I was polite. I got a drink for me and Dave and his son. And I paid for him. Dave is a very friendly guy. He was very friendly with the owner. I shouldn't say the owner. It was a middle-aged woman. I don't know if she was the owner. And that was it. We left. We went outside. There's no one else around. We opened our drinks, had a drink, and left. It was so by the time I got home, Sean was already publishing surveillance footage. There were screenshots taken from the surveillance footage of us in the parking lot. And so somebody went back who was, a longtime customer there that knows the victims, and they go in there every day, but they confronted her a little bit and just said, why would you do that? What was going on? And she said that I was stirring up trouble in there. She made it up. I said, well, show the video. You must have video of inside the store too. Show the video of just me smiling and being polite and Dave smiling and being polite. She made it up. Why did she make it up? Because when she recognized me and said, I'm going to go take a screenshot of this right away and send it off to Sean, because everybody wants to have their little role inside the big drama. I got pictures of Plevin and I sent it off. And then when confronted about it, she had to give a reason as to why she did something like that. And when she said, well, he was starting trouble. This is what's going on here. And you got people like this that are saying this about Brian Albert, about Carl Dougal, everybody that has an axe to grind or is a little bit nuts, and they're sending this to Sean, and he doesn't question or vet any of it because he's frankly insane. There's something wrong with him. There's no other explanation. I find it hard to believe that all sense of decency and sense of law enforcement has left him. As someone who spent his life in law enforcement, you must understand that you can't just believe everything you hear. You have to vet it. Now, and at some point, when you make predictions or make claims and they never ever come true, this is why Turtle Boy was like, I don't know where Sean gets his shit, because nothing this guy ever says ever proves true. Yet he's going to be on the Howie Carr show every week, right? During the trial, among the many things he says all the time, but he speaking of talking about John's father, he said, I got it on authority that John's father has informed the court officials that he switched sides, and tomorrow he's going to be sitting with Karen's supporters. It's a lie. Didn't happen. And if you'd forgive one mistake, this has been going on. February 15th, he said the feds were going to come in and blow the whole thing open, and that's it. Then it was April 15th. I remember that date. Then it was May 1st. Then it was May 20th or something like that. Then it was before Higgins testifies. Then it was before the prosecution rests. Every one of those times, he said, I have good information from the feds that the feds are going to put a stop to this trial. It was irrational because the feds signed a protective order to give all of their information to both sides, all of their relevant evidence to both sides. So for the feds to withhold information, they'd be violating the protective order that they signed themselves. They would have to slap the cuffs on their own wrists if you think they're some kind of heroes. But this is what bothers me. Sean would say these things and tell everybody, and then it wouldn't happen, and nobody would question it. Nobody would say, oh, wow, this guy's not a good source. He would never come out and say, I got that wrong, guys. Never. There's no accountability. It's crazy. I wanted to switch a little bit. I had promised, I forgot, in this show to talk about the origins of the conspiracy theory, the third-party culprit. And I have managed to get some very good information on this. And I'm going to pull it up. I'm not going to show it to you, and I have to be really careful so I can protect people that don't want certain things read out. So you'll have to trust me. If you don't, that's your business. But I'm going to be reading from actual messages. So before I do, my theory on this had been, now, if you look at the arraignment, and they showed it in 2020, David Yannetti said to the court, my client had no criminal intent. She loved this man. And then he said the same thing outside to reporters. Now, what he didn't say was, my client didn't do this. And he absolutely would have said that if Karen had said to him, David, I didn't do this. Now, Yannetti met with her for the first time. Karen was arrested on February 2nd. And she spent the night in jail and was arraigned on February 3rd. She met Yannetti in person for the first time in jail. And he went over the state's case. And they went over everything in the charging document. They had time to do that. And at no point did Karen say, I didn't do this. Because if she did, David Yannetti would have no choice but to stand in front of the court and say, my client is factually innocent. She didn't do this. We look forward to our day in court. We see that kind of thing all the time, right? Now, if later on, they decide to change their mind and plea out, or, that they can still do that. But on that day, it's normal for them to say, my client, he didn't say that though. So Karen never, at that point, herself had an idea in her head that she didn't do it. So we try to get, where did that idea come from? When did it start? Now, a great source on this was the reporting of Gretchen Voss in the article that she did. It came out in September of 2023. And she had spoke to Yannetti, spoke to Karen at length, spoke to Turtle Boy, also spoke to, let's call him Gravelly Voice. Let's not reveal his name. And other people like Tom Beattie and the Currans, who were friends of Karen Johns, who believed in Karen's innocence. I don't know about the Currans, but Tom Beattie still very much believes that Karen is innocent and there's a conspiracy and that John was killed in the house. So Gravelly Voice, according to this, we have a few different versions of the narrative here. We got the Voss interview, and we also have, he did an interview with the troopers last fall. And then I also have a source that has been talking to him. So we can kind of look at these different various versions of the narrative. And then we also have Yannetti, what he said. Now, according to Yannetti, Gravelly Voice left a message on his machine, presumably that morning. So it would have been February 3rd. Could have even been the day before if Yannetti took his time getting back to him. But certainly, if Yannetti's telling the truth, it was that morning. And we don't know exactly what he said. And we'll get to his own, Gravelly Voice's own version of this. But in Yannetti's version, whatever he said, it was enough to make Yannetti call him back on the way home from court. So it was on the way home from court that, according to David Yannetti, he first heard the beginnings of the third-party culprit theory. And he said that Gravelly Voice told him that he had heard that John was killed, attacked inside the house by Brian, his nephew, and an ATF agent. So if Yannetti's telling the truth, it dates to at least that moment. Now, Gravelly Voice had called Yannetti's office at the very least that morning, so even before the arraignment, if not earlier. Gravelly Voice has said in an interview, actually, we could say his name. His name was Scanlon, Steve Scanlon. He also did an interview with Turtle Boy, which most of us have heard that audio by now. And in that, so he was clearly not, I don't know. That interview was pretty bad. But so he told the troopers that he reached out to Karen over Facebook Messenger. Now, we don't know what date that was, but it had to be before he left the message on Yannetti's machine, with Yannetti's office. So, and Karen, whatever he said to Karen, it was not enough to give her the idea that John was killed in the house. Otherwise, she would have went with that, right? Unless she just didn't pay attention to what he said. So that's important to know. But B, it was enough. To make to give her the idea that John was killed in the house. Otherwise, she would have went with that, right? Unless she just didn't pay attention to what he said. So that's important to know. But B, it was enough. To make to give her the idea that John was killed in the house. Otherwise, she would have went with that, right? Unless she just didn't pay attention to what he said. for him to reach out to Karen. He didn't just reach out to Karen and say, hey, I don't know why, but I believe you're innocent. He must have had some reason for believing that Karen Reed was innocent. And this was before she was arrested. He may not have put much specifics in the message to Karen, but there was a reason he reached out to her. And she just said, get in touch with my lawyer. So that's why. So he was probably picking up pieces of information in those days. And he was adding to that information, or at least rumors that he was picking up during those couple of days. So looking at that, what I believed happened was very organic. And that in those first 2 or 3 days, really within the first hours, the circumstances of the case are what invited people to start to develop a conspiracy theory. So just look at the basic circumstances. At the fundamental level, you have a cop that was found essentially dead on the lawn of another cop. Now, look, that alone is going to start rumors. That alone is going to start rumors in most situations, right? Now, we can add into it that there was an after-hours party, so there's going to be drinking. And so, people know Canton is a town that is largely descendants of Southie and Dorchester. There's a lot of drinking. They understand, especially us Irish guys, there's a lot of drinking and sometimes a brawl breaks out. So they're going to start to think stuff like that. And then it would have been already circulating the idea that John looked like he'd been in a fight. Now, the autopsy photos weren't out yet. So it wouldn't have been based on that. But honestly, it just even simple things that were innocent. It may have even started with Jen McCabe and Kerry. They had obviously had no idea where this would lead, but when they saw John with his eyes swollen like that, now we know the medical explanation for that now was from the radiating skull fractures in the back of the head that create what's called raccoon eyes. But to the amateur eye looking at it, you're saying, wow, this guy looks beat up. And so Jen and Kerry are not doctors. They're not emergency room people. And so Jen and Kerry would have looked at that and said, he looks beat up. And they would have told somebody that. And somebody would have told somebody, and somebody would have told somebody. Now, by the end of the morning, or certainly by the end of the day, Kerry and Jed understood that John had been hit by Karen. But by then, those rumors probably would have been way up the food chain, and they would have taken on a life of their own. And I'll give you an example of this. So in the Lizzie Borden case, it's accepted by historians and experts that Lizzie Borden tried to buy prussic acid, a poison, in order to try to kill her parents a few days beforehand. Now, in my series, I concluded is bullshit. I'm not saying Lizzie didn't do it. I'm saying Lizzie didn't try to buy prussic acid, because you have to understand how it works. So the day before the Borden murders, Mrs. Borden went across the street to the family doctor. He lived across the street. His name was Dr. Bowen. And Mrs. Borden said, I think somebody's trying to poison us. Now, the reality is, and again, this is something weirdly, when I read every document in the Lizzie Borden case, and amazingly, no one else has picked up on the fact that there was some kind of a stomach flu or virus sweeping the town. Because not only did the whole family get it inside the Borden household, but one of the witnesses that they testified in the case testified that on that morning, she was walking by the house. She had nothing to do with anything, but she was so overcome by stomach sickness that she happened to stop at the Borden house. And she said, do her duty on the lawn. I hope that just meant threw up, but she did her duty on the lawn. She was sick. Dr. Bowen that morning was responding to the nephew and to the niece and the niece's family of Uncle John Morse. Uncle Morse, connected to the case, he was summoned there because they were all sick. So there's enough evidence that some kind of version of COVID-19 or whatever, something was sweeping through the city, and people were catching it. And in fact, in the Borden house, Lizzie and her parents had it the day before, and Bridget had it the next day. She was throwing up herself the next day. So, in fact, that's why she had to go up and take a nap, and she was taking a nap when Mr. Borden was killed. So, a norovirus or something like that was sweeping through. But Dr. Borden was one of the first people to respond to the crime scene. And now, what does he see? He sees the Bordens were killed. It's shocking. And he remembers that Mrs. Borden, who's now dead, had been there the day before complaining about being poisoned. And so what does he do? He tells the police, oh my God, maybe they've been poisoned. And we know that he did because they did the autopsy that day in the house. Things were different back then. They did the autopsy in the Borden house right there on the kitchen table. And one of the things they did was send the stomachs to the criminology lab, which was in Harvard. It was one of the only ones in the world. They sent it to the lab in Harvard to be tested for poison. So Dr. Bowen definitely told everybody now that maybe they were poisoned. That's why they sent the stomachs out to be tested. Now, those stomachs came back a month later, took a lot longer then, and there was no sign of poison. So no poison was found in the house. So there was no poisoning. However, Dr. Bowen would have told people this. All the police would have told it to each other, and there were literally thousands of people gathering around the house, and the rumor swept through the packed city of Fall River. And back then, you had a newspaper that published in the morning and in the afternoon and in the evening. And it would have been saying maybe the Bordens were poisoned. In that environment, now back then, you didn't have a few pharmacies. You had neighborhood pharmacies, so there's one on every corner. So there were dozens of pharmacies in the city of Fall River, probably many dozens. And in that environment, it's sweeping through the whole city. Everybody's talking about the Borden case. And as part of those rumors going through, it's like, oh, and they might have been poisoned. Well, in that environment, it's not surprising that out of all those dozens of pharmacies, somebody is going to magically remember someone like Lizzie coming in to try to buy poison. And so when I looked at that, I'm like, that never happened. That's just, we've seen in this Karen Reed case, people insert themselves, like the lady at Cassie's Corner Convenience and all these other freaks that give Sean these things that turn out to be completely false. For Canton, this is the momentous case of their day. It's the case of the lifetime for all of them. And everybody wants to play, not everybody, but a lot of people, it draws them like a moth to a flame, like a drunk to a bar. It draws them in and they want to contribute to it. And and maybe even the first responders that saw John and the police officers the ones that first got there, Sean Goody and Officer Sarath, they would have told they would have talked to their wives. Wow, we found this guy and he looked beat up. Hold on one second. Just need a cough drop for a second. Just getting a message too. So it's not really surprising that it would have been surprising if rumors didn't spread through the city of Ken in that first day that John was beat up. It would have been surprising if those rumors didn't spread. That's what you would expect. All right. So you're starting to get all of the conditions that are going to come together to make the perfect storm to create this theory. And it's not unusual that people believed it at the beginning. Another factor was Brian Albert. That's his house, and he's known as a tough guy. He grew up in the town. All right. He's a former Marine, a combat soldier. When he drinks, he works hard and he drinks hard. He plays hard. One of those kind of guys. And in a situation like a small town like that, there's going to be people that have their petty jealousies too. These are petty jealousies that might go back to high school. This is a made up thing, but there could be, for instance, Brian Albert beat somebody else to the starting lineup on the football team. And that guy never forgets it. And now when he has a chance, he's inserting himself into the case here. So all this stuff is coming together. Another element on this that I think made it fertile ground for this conspiracy is that it's really hard to imagine a hit and run like this. It would have been very hard for people in those early days to imagine that a girlfriend struck her boyfriend and then intentionally left him there to die. And indeed, we do see accidents like this. There are situations like this. They're rare, but they do happen. But in every other case that I've heard of, when it happens, that boyfriend was abusive. And John was not like that, and everybody knew that. So, again, people had a hard time imagining that the explanation of Karen doing it, that was the answer. So in those early days, I believe the conspiracy theory started to come together just organically. And it took on a life of its own, and it turned into the theory that we had. Now, who knew that Colin was at 34 Fairview? Well, Colin would have been telling people that himself at school. That school was canceled on Monday, but by Tuesday, and certainly that he would have been telling friends on the phone before that. Because when you are adjacent to an event that is a big event, you're going to tell people. I mean, if there's a big fire at the house across the street where you live, you're going to tell everybody, oh, wow, there was a big fire and I was home. If you're driving by on the highway and you see a very bad accident, you're going to slow down and look. It's human nature. And then you're going to tell everybody about it. So I haven't spoke to Colin, but I just know human nature. And I know that Colin would have said he knew this guy that he knew a little bit that used to be a neighbor of his, had died there. And it was only 5-10 minutes after Colin had left. So it's just human nature that Colin would have been telling his friends, hey, I was there last night. And that morphs into something else and now becomes grafted onto this swirling storm front that's picking up these little pieces to try to morph into a conspiracy theory. So they would have known that. And then somebody would have said, hey, I heard that ATF agent was there too. And again, it's a small enough town. Everybody's talking. Everybody's sharing private messages about this. So all of these things just automatically are going to pick up on it. So that was my theory. And I reached out to sources. So let me give you what I got back. And again, I'm going to have to read this out. These are receipts. I just can't show them to you. So the sources wish to remain anonymous. So here's one from February 3rd. So this is the same day as Karen's arraignment. It doesn't say a time, so I don't know the time. And they're referring to Brian Albert's house, what they were doing inside that when John was dying in the driveway. And they're talking about him getting beat up. And there's a more specific one. Let me roll on to the next one. So on February 1st, so this is before Karen was even arrested. I'm just scrolling through these messages. So this one here, there's more specific stuff. All right, so they're saying police are investigating. This is the house where he died. Had a bunch of Canton police inside, so they knew there were cops inside. And at this point in the rumor, they're talking about they're thinking it's Canton police. So that's the thing about rumors. It's going to be taking on a different life as it's going through. Just bear with me as I roll these. And then there's one here from February 1st, where they're talking about Brian Albert beating John to death with a baseball bat. I don't know. I don't know what to say, but this, if you're out there listening to this and you have more messages that support this, which most people that are listening to this right now probably aren't in those circles, but if you do, please send them to me. We just care about the truth. But these messages show that by February 1st, there were rumors going around that Brian Albert was responsible for this. One, that he beat John up with a baseball bat. So, I mean, trying to pull up some more to see if I got some more. There was one other good one that I can't find. I think maybe it just won't show up on here, but I had viewed these on my phone earlier, so I think parts of these I can't. Okay, yeah, here's the one. Me watching the Alberts go to jail for beating a man with a bat. That's February 1st. So on February 1st, this person created a meme about watching. I'm sorry, he didn't say Brian Albert. He said the Alberts. Me watching the Alberts go to jail for beating a man with a bat. And so there you go. There's a plural, the Alberts. So that's February 1st. That's Tuesday, February 1st. That's the same day Karen is arrested. And I don't know the time on this, but they've got Alberts in the plural. So that suggests probably that the rumor of Colin being in on it was already there. Now, again, none of this is evidence of anything other than rumors. And so what this shows is that these rumors were going around organically very early on. And I think that's just the nature of the beast. I have a couple more people to say thank you to. So Wicked Uma, always good to see. It was awesome to see TB deflate. Thanks for that. Yeah, the look on his face for that interview was priceless. Well, first of all, Turtle Boy doesn't like giving up the mic. It was really amusing to me when Sean was on the Turtle Boy show a year and a few months ago, and Sean tends to filibuster, and Turtle Boy lost control of his own mic. But yeah, seeing Aiden's face, he knows what's coming. And if I played this a little bit longer on that clip, you would have seen he goes on to say, no, listen, you're not allowed to talk to anybody on the other side. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to get both sides. And this is the thing. It's not new. This is what led to the friction between me and Aiden. When I was trying to ask questions on both sides, this is over a year ago, I had to favor, people call it the outburst episode, where I lost my cool and started yelling at Aiden. He was accusing me of both sidesism. He calls himself a journalist. Yet it's a crime to ask questions of both sides. And this is not one of those cases where you can just insist you have all the facts, because you're saying that it's 100% that that John was killed inside the house. Yet 9 of the jurors did not believe that. And even it sounds like the 2 jurors he interviewed, one was a not guilty vote, and the other one was a torn vote, someone that was not guilty on manslaughter, but then switched to guilty. None of those people said to Turtle, wow, we know Karen was killed in the house. None of them even brought that up. So it doesn't seem like anybody on the jury believed this nutty theory. But Turtle Boy's saying that you and I aren't allowed to even question it. We're not even allowed to ask questions. And this is why, people say that I'm being unfairly critical of people that are in that mob and believe that. Listen, there's something wrong with that way of thinking. There's something fundamentally dangerous about that way of thinking, where you've turned off a whole part of your brain that allows you to ask questions and have common sense. That's not just me disagreeing with you on something. We can have a discussion about what's the best thing to do as far as Israeli policy, as far as policy on Ukraine, or what's the best thing that how do the Patriots turn it around? We can have disagreements on that. What's the best thing to do for the economy? But you ought to be able to ask questions. This is not something at all that's proven. And this mob doesn't want anybody asking questions. And that tells you right there what kind of mob they are. Win Mom, thank you for the donation. I very much appreciate it. Said, thank you, Kevin, for being the voice of logic and reason and not giving up. You have more followers than you know, and I pray the O'Keefes can find the peace and justice they deserve. And I do appreciate your support, because it's I'm not alone, but it feels lonely sometimes. Definitely, you feel like there aren't enough people taking up the battle. Like I wore in the last show, I started out with a pink shirt on, because to me, that's something that should unite us, that Turtle Boy's tactics should be unacceptable to both sides. It should be unacceptable, the idea that you're going to dox the wife of a prosecutor just because you don't agree with them. That should be unacceptable to any decent human being. Anyone who doesn't take a position against that. I'm not saying everybody has to take a public position against that. I know not everybody can do that, but it's disturbing that more people aren't standing up to that. I guess they're all afraid, but that's what they want. This crowd wants people to be afraid. Make no mistake about it. That's what they want. Reality Check said, you said any person, any time. I don't know what that means, but I've read it out loud. And WD-40 gave a super sticker. Thank you. So that gets through the messages. We'll take a few questions and then call it a night, because I actually haven't had supper tonight. So we'll go right to the questions here. Okay, Reality Check. I don't know what conversation you want to have, but I give out my email on every show multiple times, and I will give it out now. So calm down. I'm not ignoring you. I'm not always able to see the chat screen depending on what I'm doing. There. Make sure I spell. There's my email, leetskev@gmail.com. I had somebody contact me several days ago that claimed to be an engineer, and I believed him. And he said the ARCA people proved that there's no way John was struck by a vehicle. And I had a civil discussion with him. I didn't convince him, he didn't convince me. But I take it on. So whatever it is that you want to talk about with me, if you're polite and respectful, I'll take it on. And that's how we all learn, right? So, but you're accusing me. Tell me to my face. What do you want me to tell you to your face? I don't even understand. I'd like to have a similar. You can have that conversation with me. Email me. People email since day one. People have been emailing me from the other side. And over time, a lot of them actually eventually flip over, like Colin from Canada here, and Antiquated Rogue. These are guys that got very upset with me for months, but just like I said, you go through a process of keep asking questions, and eventually they flipped over. But why am I going to bring you on? I don't know anything about you, Reality Check. So you can email me, and I'll find out what you have. And if you seem reasonable, I'll be happy to talk to you. If you are reasonable and you want to come in and make a very powerful argument for whatever side of the case you're on, yes, I will have you on. But you're already starting off with a bad tone here, because anybody that's followed this case understands I'm the only one that's willing to take on both sides. Kate would too. She's not really been doing shows lately, I don't think, but she's not afraid. But Turtle Boy's afraid. Young Jelly is afraid. He won't have anybody on. I offered all those shows to go on their show, to come on my show, or to talk in private, to let them to give them another side of the truth. Whatever, Kevin, I am not Irene. I don't know who Irene is. I didn't say anything about Irene. Who's Irene? All right. I got to say this, and I apologize to everybody else out there. I'm going to just quickly say it as a swear. Reality Check, fuck you. All right? And I know people's moms are watching. Fuck off, bitch. All right? And I want to explain to people why. And I'm banning this bitch. Here I am being reasonable and saying, yes, you can come on my show. Here's my email. Reach out to me. Let me know that you're not a psycho. And she's continuously insulting me. And now she's saying that I'm a dick. This is what you got to deal with these people all the time. You can open your door and hold out your hand and be reasonable. And they're freaking nuts. Okay? They are freaking nuts. And I won't swear again for the rest of the show. So I apologize to anybody who's offended by that watching. But this is crazy. You try to, you can't, I didn't do anything disrespectful. I offered, from what messages I saw, I said, I'll take it on. Send me your email. But yet she's insulting me and saying I'm being a dick. Fuck off. Fuck off. Go hang out with Turtle Boy. He doesn't mind your stupidity. Jesus, these people are so, it's it's frustrating. The level of stupidity is just, it's mind-boggling. You feel like you're in an alternative universe. Like you sit there and you say to someone, okay, reach out to me. And they say, you're a dick. You're being a dick. It's like being in the Matrix. You wake up and you're like, I'm being a dick by saying, go ahead and email me. But this is how these people are. They're so divorced from reality. You say one thing and they hear something else. This is why it's very, very difficult to get through to these people on any topic, because they're so emotionally invested in something that they're no longer asking questions or seeing even a limited slice of reality. They have no idea. Maui, you've been doxxed twice. I apologize. I didn't see it. And Tom might have been in the bathroom. I do apologize, Maui. So for those of you guys that have my personal contact information, a message like that, so a messages during the show can be distracting, but if it's important like that, please message me. So I'll come right on and look for that and take it off. Oh, Tom caught it. Oh, good. Thank you, Tom. Good. I knew Tom would catch it if he was there. So, but these are long shows, so sometimes he has to hit the head. So, but good. Great job. Great job. So, but I'm sorry that somebody did that, Maui. So it is crazy. We haven't seen a lot of doxing on the channel for a while. I used to get doxed on this like multiple times a night. But that hasn't been really happening. But if you're on the other side of this, but you're sincere and you're a reasonably intelligent person, email me. And if you can convince me that you're not going to come on and be a doofus or be rude to people, I'll have you on. I invite people from the other side on all the time. They don't want to come on. Because let's face it, they're not going to win. But I don't mean that like I'm going to try to bully them. I won't. I would go bend over backwards not to. Let them say their piece. But they kind of understand. It's kind of like when I went on Nurse Kim's show. She ended up at the end of it doing this big exhale and dumping over like she just gave birth. They're not used to opposition, and they haven't considered the other side of anything. They've never tried to find out why the vehicle was towed to the Sally Port, and it was revealed in the trial too, but somehow they missed that day, right? And there's just so many other aspects of this case. They haven't thought it through, and they don't ever get the information from the other side. I have the information from their side, all of it. There is no free Karen Reed argument that I have not heard. But that's not true of them. They have not heard any of the evidence debunking the free Karen Reed stuff. I have the information from both sides. And I would say most of the people in our audience do too. Most of the people in our audience understand. They know what the conspiracy theory is. They know every aspect of it. And at the same time, they know how to debunk it. And they're here not so much because they want to listen to me, but it's kind of like a get to hang out and chat with other people that know the truth. They don't do that. They don't know the other side. That would have been a great thing to point out for Turtle Boy tonight. I mean, last night when he had Phelps on and he was trying to quiz, he was saying, my audience is so smart. You can ask him any question about the conspiracy and they'll answer it. Yeah, but that's all they can answer. They won't ever answer the debunking. Like if you ask them, why was there no actual gap in the library video? None of them can answer that. Thousands of free Karen Reed people, most of them that still believe there's a gap, even though it was never mentioned in the trial. Not a single one can explain to you why there was actually no gap. Not a single one can explain to you why the vehicle was towed to the Sally Port. Not a single one can explain to you why there was no non-human hair. And many other aspects of the case and many other things that were debunked. They can't explain it. And that's a problem. That should tell, and look at Turtle Boy he's telling Phelps, nobody should have anybody else on to offer these explanations. So I'm going to give you these explanations. They're not brilliant. They're just there. Like the Sally Port, the answer was in the trial. They don't care. They don't want you to know the truth. It's funny that, I'm going to finish up on the Sally Port because this is where research comes into play, because most of us are ignorant about most parts of this case and about just things generally until we do the research. Like I was not in law enforcement. I've never been a detective for the state police. So I don't know how that works. I do now, but it's taken more than a year to figure it out. And those, so there's a learning curve here, whether it's same thing with forensic data and so many other aspects of this case. So the way it works, the state police in the detectives unit, a certain amount of them, it's usually 4 or 5, are assigned to a district attorney's office. So at the time of John's death, there were 4 detectives assigned to the Norfolk County's district attorney's office. Proctor and Buchanan, 2, and then there were 2 others. And those Proctor and Buchanan, they were on call for that night. And they're the ones that came up. But the way it works, so we heard all this stuff about evidence. Well, why did it take 6 weeks to be logged into the state police evidence system? Was it in Michael Proctor's car for 6 weeks? No. Now, I didn't know how it worked either. So I'm not, if you don't know, I'm not talking down to you. I've learned. If you watch the trial, you got a sense of it. So, and it's logical. And the same thing will come up as to why the vehicle was towed to the Sallyport. So the case is prosecuted at the state level from the district attorney's office. So those attorneys that are doing the prosecution of it are in that office. That office in Norfolk County happens to be in the town of Canton. So the evidence that they're going to use to process the case is in the office with them. Surprise, surprise. So there's an evidence storage room in that office, in that series of offices for the district attorney's office. And that's where the bags go, for instance, with John's clothing and the taillight pieces and stuff like that. Now, eventually, some of that evidence has to be sent off to a state police lab that is specially trained. Now, the district attorney's office doesn't have labs. So that has to go to a lab that is run by the state police. So something like John's clothing will eventually go into that. And that's when it was logged into the system for the state police because it was transferred to a lab there. But before that, for those 6 weeks, it was in the evidence room where most of the evidence will be in the district attorney's office. Same thing with the taillight pieces. They were sent off to a state police lab where a criminologist studied them under the little spectrometers or whatever the hell those devices are. And they're trying to figure out, and they piece together those pieces back into the taillight. So again, that's when those pieces get transferred out, but it's all logical. It's all as once you know how it works, it makes sense. Well, the same thing with the vehicle. The Sallyport, not only is it heated, which is the shortest answer as to why I was towed there, because they had snow and ice on it. You can't scrape it off because you're going to search it for evidence. So you want it to melt. And the Sallyport was small, and that's why it was heated, unlike a big garage. So that made perfect sense. But even if this accident had happened in July, that vehicle would have been towed to that Sallyport more than likely because it was only a mile away from the district attorney's office. Now, eventually, at some point, it might and does get transferred to a state police garage so they can store it there because they don't have room for it at that small Sallyport, or because there might be certain types of specialized testing, for example, that might have to be done to it or something like that. But to tow it to the facility that's nearest to where the prosecution is going to be, that's logic. That's how it's done. And that's not something that anybody on the other side knows or wants to know. They don't want to know the truth. And this on and on, this goes here. Why did Brian destroy his SIM card at a military base? It sounded so nefarious, but he lives in Brewster on the Cape where they don't have town trash pickup. And he's an Army veteran. He drives, if not every day, every other day, across the base before he comes to work on the mainland, if I can call it that. He's going to get gas there. He's going to buy liquor. He's going to buy cigarettes, whatever. I don't even know if he smokes, and he's going to take advantage of the dumpsters there to throw out his trash because otherwise he's going to have to go to the town. It's called a recycling plant in Brewster and pay. So it makes more sense to just dump it for free in the place that you're going anyways, the base. Perfectly logical, reasonable explanation. If you give that explanation to somebody on the Free Karen Read side, you will get the Free Karen Read face. That's what you get. Every muscle in the face goes dead for a second and a half. If you know any Free Karen Read people, and I'm not talking about someone who's just loosely following the case and thinks maybe some weird stuff happened or whatever, but someone that's deep into this, it's very important to them. They've bought pink clothing. If you know anybody, you can confront them with something like this that debunks one of their things, and you will produce that Free Karen Read face, and I promise you'll get a kick out of it. Enjoy it. And don't worry about me if it's a week or more before I do another show because I'm really working hard on the book. So, longest intro ever. Yeah, that's